Hey everybody, welcome back. Christopher Ruocchio here, author of the Sun Eater Science Fantasy series from Dog Books and 6-year veteran of the publishing industry. And I am joined this afternoon by my friend Mike of Mike's Book Reviews. Most of you, I'm sure, watch Mike's channel too. So, but if Mike, you want to introduce yourself just for posterity.
Yeah, I'm just a fan of the Sun Eater books, and I'm just here to chat with an author. It's part of the Make-A-Wish Foundation. I'm just happy to be here.
Yeah, just some guy. Well, we got a couple people. Mike, you can see the comments, right? This is sort of a software experiment for me. I haven't done the.
Oh, okay. Yes, I can.
Yeah, we got Madison's here, King Crusoe, my guy Meth, and Martin here. So folks filtering. We got 16 already. That's the mic effect right there. So what's going on, man? How you been doing?
Nothing. Mic effect is I just want to see if I say something bad on the air. So I usually do these. I mean, I record everything. I never really edit anything out. But when I do a live stream, I try to make sure I don't say anything that's going to get me in trouble later. But these things are always what makes the live. It makes it exciting, right? It's exciting.
Yeah. You always the constant. Don't say anything too bad about books people like, or
Name of the Wind is a bad book, and I don't feel bad about it.
I'm sure.
Hey, wait a second. There's only 4 people in the chat now. What happened?
No, they're all gone. We scared them off.
So what are we talking about today?
I just sort of thought that we would do sort of the sequel to our last video. Because
you said talk about everything. I talk about nothing. So
yeah. So I think I've set the bar a little higher for the sequel. As one does, but we'll see if it's more of a Matrix Reloaded or an Empire Strikes Back situation. So nostalgic. It was that first Mike and Christopher conversation introduced me to Sun Eater. Well, I'm glad we did it then, Chet. Let's see, we got a bunch of people here. Is 56 is 560,000 words too much for a single novel? These days, yeah, apparently we're not allowed to do that anymore, or at least I'm not allowed to do that.
So tell me about this. Tell me about the how did this? I mean, did you fight it? This making you split your book? Did you fight it?
No, because there wasn't really anything to fight, right? I just got an email that said from my publisher that was like, we have to split the book because Penguin told us so. And so it wasn't my publisher's fault, right? Because a lot of people don't know this, right? But there are really only like 4 publishers in the English-speaking world, and 3 of them are owned by non-English-speaking, people. So Penguin, Random House, Simon & Schuster are all one big label now. And so most of the labels you see, like Tor, right, or DAW or Baen, are usually owned by somebody else. Baen is actually still independent, but they're distributed by Simon & Schuster. But DAW is semi-independent, owned by Penguin, Random House owned. They can still make all their editorial calls, but they can't make decisions about things like distribution. And Tor is part of Macmillan. So if you just like go all the way up, you'll eventually find one of these big corporate, like organisms that owns all these little labels, because they used to all be their own thing. And so, DAW gets to decide who to print and how to print them, but or at least as far as like editorial decisions go. But as far as how many, right, or in what format, a lot of that's got like some corporate oversight. And usually, and this is true when I worked at Baen too, because we would go to Simon & Schuster, tell them everything that we were publishing in a season, right? Because publishing kind of plans in 4-month chunks. So 3 seasons a year. We'd go and sort of report what we're doing, and they would say, hey, well, you could bump that price up to $2 because it's David Weber or whoever, and we could get away with that. Or like, why don't we do this one in hardcover? Or that one shouldn't be hardcover. And they would make some sort of calls. In the case of the Baen SNS relationship, that was a little bit more negotiated because they didn't own Baen. But I imagine in the case of DAW or even Tor, there's a lot more corporate, commanding going on. So there wasn't really anything I could do.
That branches into 2 questions here.
Yeah.
Okay. Well, first one is, were you tempted to edit the book to get it down to 1 release?
No.
And the second would be, Does this mean it's now going to be a 7-book series, or is the final book not going to be 2 releases?
So that's definitely possible. It might be going up to 7, just depending on where things are in, I guess book 6 now is going to come out in 2023. So depending on where things are in 2023, it might be 1 book or it might get split again. And as you might imagine, there's some interesting stuff on the back end with contracts and how pay scales work and things like that, or pay schedules even. But I did not want to cut half of the story, right? Because actually, the reverse happened when I sold the books. It was 4, and Demon in White got what was Demon in White and Kingdoms of Death was supposed to be 1 book originally, and there's just no way. Especially, you know, the first draft of Kingdoms of Death was even longer than Demon in White was, and so yeah, no, I couldn't. I didn't want to lose all that stuff, because then people would be like, "Hey, you skipped over a lot of stuff. You know, like you skipped out that bit with the pirates and the shipwreck. You guys know what I mean." And you know, you don't want to lose stuff like that, especially if it's like the exciting, fun stuff. And there's a lot that I just didn't want to get out. So yeah, it might be 7. I'm kind of hoping it is, because that would just be the easiest way, and I'd like to know in advance so I don't have to do a lot of this sort of like back correcting. Because what ended up happening was I basically cut the book in half, and the first half's pretty much good to go, like short anything my editor wants me to change. And it was about 200,000 words, and then the remainder was in the second half, and it doesn't have a beginning because it was the back half of a book. So, you know, I've got like the big climax of the original book, because there was also like a big thing in the middle, you know, just the way that like there's usually something big in the middle, and then there's something big at the end. But I didn't have a lot of the sort of lead up to the second half, right? So I need to go and sort of stretch things around, and I don't want to do that again, because I prefer to work in a straight line. I like to have the outline and just write chapter 1, 2, 3, 4, because that way all the like little stuff, like whether or not, you know, a character that you didn't plan on being in a scene ended up being in a scene, or like where a character's emotional space is stuff that I kind of do with like working memory as I'm going. And to do that stuff out of order is just a huge pain in the ass. So
hey, it's all good to me. That means we get 7 books of that fantastic cover art. That's going to look really great on my shelf.
Yeah, that's the nice benefit, right? Is there's more art, you know, and there's more to talk about, because every time there's a new book, there's like, you know, a new push, right? And so there's the benefit from that. And as someone noted, right, this way I can fix the fact that Howling Dark's 2-word title is kind of awkward, since the others are all 3. I can maybe make book 6 2 words and balance things out. It's nice to know some of my readers are as, you know, compulsive as I am. So, but it's going to be good for everybody. Like I said in my video, there'll be more actual wordage to read because of the split. So that's, you know, that's pretty cool. Let's see if we got
he said enough shop talk. He wants to talk about nothing now.
I want to talk. Yeah, back to
he
nothing.
Wants to rank Dio songs 100 to 1. Let's go 100. No, I'm kidding.
Dude, I've thought about doing some Dio videos. Actually, I want to wait, because I'm missing like 2 albums in vinyl, and I feel like having them would complete the effect.
Well, you know, you could always, you know, just branch out and do something that's not, and get, you know, really nasty comments about how, like, you don't ever talk about blank on your channel. So, you know,
why is there a diet video on your book reading channel? You're like,
no, apparently, I don't do reviews anymore. That was news to me, really. So
I heard that rumor. I guess that's just, you know, my gremlin's mad that there's not sequel reviews, which I totally get, for the record. I just make it funny. But Martin.
So what are you into right now outside of writing? What are you doing for fun right now?
I was just playing the remake of Skyward Sword, the Zelda game, which is not my favorite Zelda game, but I don't.
How's that work with the motion controls being gone? Because I would have liked that game if it wasn't for the awful Wii controls. Because here's the thing about that game: this was a shield bash, this was a sword thrust. Guess what he did? The opposite of whatever the hell you wanted him to do when I played that game. So it frustrated me so much. But it has some of the best dungeons in the Zelda game, I thought.
Yeah, it does. It has some of the best boss fights, too. Yeah. And some of the best writing. To be honest, like Girahim is probably, short of Ganon, the best Zelda villain, just like scene for scene. And having him as a recurring villain that you have to fight, I think, 3 times in the game is really nice. Unlike the damned in prison fight, which sucks. I just did that again for like the
So are
8th
the
trillionth
controls
time.
better now without having
Yeah,
these motion controls?
yeah, no, they really cleaned it up. They put the sword on the right stick, which is kind of weird. Like you usually don't play a game where they put the primary weapon on
Yeah.
the the right stick,
You
but
get used to it after a while, though.
yeah, it actually I kind of like it because you'll click it to thrust, and then you can depending on which way you move the stick, you'll swing in a different direction. So it's once you get used to it, because it's kind of strange. It's mostly it's much improved. It's not quite as big an upgrade as I thought the remake of Wind Waker was over the original,
Yeah.
but Wind Waker is my favorite Zelda game. It's
I'm
probably
just over here waiting for him to remaster Ocarina of Time. I'm talking not fresh coat of paint. I mean a fresh rebuild with the new system in there. Put
new
the
engine.
Breath of the
Yeah.
Wild system in there, and I would be, oh my god.
That would be really cool. I would have settled for like the 3DS sort of graphical overlay, and then do a bundle for Ocarina of Time and Majora's Mask.
I mean, look how long it took him to do Mario Sunshine finally. So it's like, hey, Nintendo, people love some of those games you can't get anymore. People love collections, especially if you're going to charge full price for them. At least give us a couple of games, I think. So.
Well, they've been pretty good about doing a lot of the like sort of old remaster bundles. They're just doing a bunch of the old Castlevania Game Boy Advance games. Those are going to roll out, and then I've got like Mega Man Zero and stuff like that. Because I'm a big Nintendo guy, so I've been doing that. I just played Hades, which was pretty fun. I've got some like qualms with how they did some of the mythology. It was weird because they were both like really specific and detail oriented, and doing some pretty deep cuts, and then like their implementation of some of the stories and the characters was very postmodern and kind of weird, but it was a very good game.
I bought ActRaiser Resurrection, I think it's called. It's a remake of the Super Nintendo game ActRaiser. They just put it out on Steam. I bought it this morning. I didn't even look at reviews, nothing. It's one of my favorite Super Nintendo games ever. And I know I'm older than you. You're probably like, oh, my first system was the N64.
Actually, it was a Super Nintendo.
Okay.
I was behind.
It was just like it was like the Sim City kind of games, but more medieval, where you're just building your town and stuff, and then you'd have like your dungeon crawls and stuff.
Oh, that's awesome.
Doing a remake of that, I hope it turns out better than the Secret of Mana remake turned out. So we'll see.
Yeah, I love that series too. I played Sword of Mana on the Game Boy Advance. That was my first one in that series, and that game's great too. They don't really do. I really like the sort of 2D RPGs, and they don't really do that sort of thing anymore.
For me with remakes, it's like I hate them for movies, but I kind of like them for video games. If they actually rebuild it, like Gears of War, they went and they were like, why are they remastering Gears of War? The game isn't even 10 years old, but they did a complete rebuild from the ground up. It wasn't just like I said, a fresh coat of paint. I'm like, okay, I'm on board for stuff like that. Still don't think they should be charging full price for them.
Yeah,
but if people are paying it.
I get that it's like a lot of work sometimes if they're doing those full-on rebuilds, but yeah. I don't like
nobody loves to charge you twice for the same game more than Nintendo, man. They love it.
Yeah, well, they can get away with it, right? These people will do it, and I'm right at the top of the list of the guilty there. So
how about Foundation, man? Did you watch Foundation?
Yeah, I did. I'm like of two minds about it. Right. And this is where
because I haven't read it. I wanted to make sure that I didn't read it because I had already heard everybody say it's not going to be like the books. You can't make it like the books. It's like, all right, but I don't want to get mad. I want to enjoy the show. So
I'm of two minds about it because and this is where I'm going to get in more trouble than you for that Rothfuss comment. I am not a huge Asimov fan. Yeah. I'll say the sort of boilerplate thing. A lot of people say his short stories are much better than his novels. A lot of people will say that. And it's because he's so idea driven. His characters are really anemic. And people will say that that's a staple of like the period. That's not really true. That's a staple of like the sort of Campbell authors, right? Like Asimov and Clarke, and Heinlein to an extent too. Like sort of the really big names from the period. If you read someone like Lee Brackett, who was writing at the same time, her characters are great. He was always more idea heavy, right? Like that sort of canard everybody trots out is true. And so like I really struggled. I think I read like maybe half of Foundation. I've never finished the book. I just went and read Dune again because in a lot of ways Dune is kind of a reaction to Foundation, and it addresses a lot of my qualms, I think, with the books. And so I sort of thought, hey, I'm going to watch the show because, I usually have read the book first, and this will be an interesting experience to sort of just be a normie for once, or at least mostly a normie. And again, like I'm sure people are going to get mad that I've said this, that I haven't actually read the book.
The thing I've learned about the internet is someone's
Um,
always going to get mad, and they're going to let you know.
yeah, it's just sort of like, oh, I go to church every Sunday, but like I've never read the Gospel of Matthew, like I skipped that one. Um, you know, people are like, oh, you're a faker. But what I thought was going to be interesting about it, and this is something I'm not really qualified because I haven't read the book, to get at, is because you have to make it a show, right? And you have to sort of, the medium changes the nature of the story, right? They would have to fill in a lot of the things that Asimov didn't write, like characters, right? Let's not say that like characters don't exist in the book, but I understand that like I don't remember the clone emperor thing, and I remember reading a couple people said that was a pure confection of the show, right? And
That's my favorite part. I love that idea. It's such a cool idea.
yeah, and of course I love Lee Pace. So like the main reason I wanted to watch it was, one, it looked amazing, graphically, but I love Lee Pace, and I really love Jared Harris. I've loved Jared Harris since Sherlock Holmes 2, when he was Moriarty. He's just so awesome in that movie. And of course, I loved his dad too, right? Richard Harris, one of the best actors of all time. And he's got a little bit of his dad in him too, so it's just kind of cool. So I'll watch basically anything he's in because he's in it. Despite which I have not caught up with The Expanse.
I had no idea that was his dad. I had no.
Oh yeah,
Dumbledore. That's his dad. Really?
His dad is good Dumbledore. Yeah.
I had no idea. I love Jared Harris on Mad Men, and then I loved him on The Expanse. He was on The Expanse for a couple seasons, and then I guess they realized that this guy's too expensive for us, so we're just going to kind of keep him looming in the background. But yeah, he's a fantastic actor.
Yeah, he's so. Even when he's not the bad guy, he's got this like scenery chewing villain thing going on. Mm-hmm. It's just I wanted to watch it, and he's great. I kind of wish he were more. I wish he were even more present than he'd been, right? Because obviously Gale is more central. But like I think that like in a weird way, those books are probably more ripe for the kind of random changes that adaptations make, because I think they must have gender bent, because Gale's definitely a guy in the books.
I heard they've combined numerous characters because they do change characters so much in the series. Yeah,
and they've done all sorts of things like that because they need to sort of build a human story into the broader framework of sort of the thought experiment that those books are. Right. And so I think that's interesting because like I have thought often, like if someone's going to adapt my stuff, like I don't actually want them to do a beat for beat sort of prescriptive remake. Right. Because I was watching the opening credits reel for the Netflix Cowboy Bebop. Right. And it is not working for me. It looks too,
shocker. Netflix isn't adapting an anime, right? No.
Yeah. It could have gone either way. They got the original composer back, and there's like no replacing Yoko Kanno's music. And they were pretty faithful about most of the costumes. There's a pretty high profile exception, right? And some other things. And so I thought, it's weird because it looks like they both really, really, really care and also don't. Right. About accuracy. And then when I was watching the thing, like there were like frame for frame remakes of bits from the cartoon, which I was just rewatching because it's my favorite anime of all time. And I like, why would you adapt a show to a show and make it the same, right? Or at least mostly the same. Like I don't need to see the same episode again. Like that's weird. But if you're gonna turn a book into a TV show, right? Like part of the problem with the David Lynch Dune movie, right?
Part of the problem.
Part of the problem. Yeah, it's got a lot of issues. It's got a lot of stuff I like too. But is that they try to do all the internal monologues from the book, right? Like there's no way that you can do internal monologues, right? Like the whole "I will bend like a reed in the wind," like it just doesn't work, right? So you need to like change shit in order to make it fit whatever the like new thing is. And I think Foundation, like, they've got a chance to do that, because I don't want to just like, there's no way the book could just go on screen. Like, it has to become something else. And so that's cool. It does, what do you think about it though? Because I'm
Let's say
talking.
we started on Foundation and we're over here on Cowboy Bebop and David Lynch's Dune here. I like your talk about nothing kind of approach here. It's working really well.
Oh
Well,
yeah, we're trying to
Foundation,
cover everything, right? We'll get to the stuff that I know nothing about.
Three things I think about Foundation. One, I have waited my whole life. I've watched a lot of science fiction TV. I've waited my whole life for science fiction TV to look this expensive. Holy hell, I don't think that a movie special effects could look as good as it looks on there. And I'll say that's one thing about Apple TV is they're focusing on original content and they're pouring a lot of money into it. And if you can say anything about that show, if the storyline ain't clicking for you, you're not liking the characters, man, at least your eyes aren't going to be bored, because that show is absolutely stunning.
Oh, dude, right? Yeah.
Second thing, I like that they're not dumbing it down for, and I hate to say, because people think I hate the MCU when I say this, but they're not dumbing it down for MCU audiences. It's very hard science fiction. They're not straying away from that at all. At least not. I don't think so. And third, I got to say that no one besides Lee Pace could wear those ridiculous costumes and not look silly in it, because he delivers such amazing lines. The guy is so good. I love him.
Yeah, I will say, like, his armpit hair every time he's like giving a speech like this is a little bit uncomfortable.
Yeah, my wife pointed out his lack of a belly button because he's a clone. And I was like, I didn't even notice this.
Oh shoot, I missed that too. But he's so good, right? Just watching him sort of do he's like playing a weird like Thranduil Ronan sort of hybrid.
Doesn't it make you wish that The Hobbit was better because he's so perfect for Thranduil?
Yeah, it does. I honestly, so The Hobbit's another one where like I don't like the movies, but boy, there are like 10-minute chunks of those films that are awesome.
There's fan edits that really, there's like, wow, there's some good stuff in here. There really is. Yeah.
As long as you get rid of like a bunch of the janky, like really silly fight scenes and
all of them, basically, yeah.
Basically all of them, yeah. Like Alyssa's jumping on a bunch of falling rocks like he's Naruto, and like man. But like the Thranduil scenes are really, really good. Yeah. And I'll rewatch those clips, or I'll rewatch the Smaug stuff. But he's so good.
So you want to answer some of your fan mail here, so they don't think I'm taking you away from them? So.
No, yeah, let's do it. No, I don't want to answer it. Is that a globe of Mars behind you, Christopher? No, that is just a really old sort of sepia tone globe of Earth. It's sort of like circa 1500, but it's actually a bar. It's hiding a bunch of whiskey. So
it's almost as good as when I asked you if that was a death note back there.
Yeah, no, it's still a Bible. Let's see. How many books did you work out for writing in the future? We talked a little bit about with the series. It might be 7. Right now it's 6. And then after that, I've got some vague ideas, but I don't have like a firm number. I've got maybe like 4 or 5 standalones in the Sun Eater universe I want to do. But I don't have an order, and I don't know, like, well, I don't have an order, so I don't know which one's going to be first. I was about to be redundant. Started Demon in White soon. Really excited. Well, thank you, Slappy White. Let's see. Should abandon my publisher and start doing Kickstarters like Michael Sullivan. Well, my publisher mostly does really well by me. This wasn't their fault. The whole world caught a cold. I'm trying not to hold it against them. But Sullivan's whole shtick is really cool. I would like to be a bit more secure in my in my audience before I try to make a move like that.
Never forget when I asked Mr. Sullivan in our interview, did it take a lot of courage to leave a publisher and go Kickstarter? And he was like, no, actually, I was like making less working for a publisher. I was like, wow, okay.
Yeah, that's a tricky thing, right? Because I used to get nervous when we would have an indie writer come and start working with us when I was at Bain, because the like sort of outside perception of how publishing works is not how publishing works. And like there's probably like a whole video about that sort of thing. But like everybody still thinks that you're getting book tours and you're going to be flown around as if Pan Am still exists.
Right.
Like that doesn't happen unless you're a really, really big deal. And like most people's experience of writers really is still like they'll look at Stephen King, or within the genre they'll look at Martin or Rothfuss or Sanderson, and those guys are big enough that they still get the old school treatment. But
Dan says that Mystery is the best Dio song.
Mystery is a damn good Dio song. I don't know if it would be the best one, but Last in Line is my favorite Dio record for sure. Doesn't have a bad song on it.
It's kind of a flip a coin for me. If you're talking just solo Dio, I mean, it's hard for me not to. I mean, I always, but if I'm just picking up Dio just to listen to a song, I seem to pick up All the Fools Say the Way a lot.
Ooh, that is.
Or Rock and Roll Children. I don't know. See, this is like something that it'll change in 3 minutes,
Yeah, so. I can't pin one down either. Like on the song level, because All Fools Sail Away is awesome. I love Dream Evil. That album is super underrated. Yeah. Craig Goldie.
You name some of your chapter titles. Dream Evil. How about
just one chapter title?
Well, it was enough. It counted as 2.
Yeah, they all count as 2. But no, Mystery is awesome. I love Eat Your Heart Out, which is the next song. That one's awesome too. But that whole record, actually, I just listened to it again last night, which I hadn't in a long time. So it's sort of fresh. But yeah, no, Mystery is awesome.
Slappy brings up one here that I don't. Maybe you can get this because you're younger than me. I missed Pokemon. It blew up after I felt like I was too old for Pokemon. But Slappy says, "Hot take: the first few generations of Pokemon has some excellent world building. Do you agree or disagree?"
I do. I really like the first 2, particularly. They're a bit more connected than sort of the other ones are, and that because they were kind of planned at the same time. If everybody remembers, Ho-Oh, who is a second generation Pokemon, is in the first episode of the show. Those first 2 generations were done. I just said gens like I'm some sort of zoomer. Those first 2 generations were done at the same time. They just sort of like planned on it. And so there's a lot of connective tissue between Red and Blue and Gold and Silver. And I really have a soft spot for Gold and Silver because they're bigger than the other games. You give twice as many gyms. And it was such a cool post game because most Pokemon games, like I just get sort of done. I beat the Elite Four. And I'm like, okay, I am not in fact gonna catch them all. I'm gonna move on.
This is more over my head than Cowboy Bebop is. So.
Well, we're gonna get you on the Cowboy Bebop.
I mean, I'm fully on board with the manga. I'm enjoying the manga, but the anime still is. I don't know.
I get it. I was about to ask if it was the laugh. And Cowboy Bebop does have a bit of that. There's a bit of the tonal weirdness, but I think. If you're trying to watch an anime, it's pretty noir. When it's serious, it is very serious. And it's got a lot of the sort of Blade Runner feel to it, but it's also it is a lot sillier than I remember it being as I've been rewatching it. But when it is going for the full sort of noir effect, I think you dig it.
I feel like Full Metal Alchemist or Death Note will probably be the one that I try because it has like the best feedback as far as like Westerners liking it. I think so.
Yeah, they're both great. And you'll now be qualified to catch all the Berserk in Full Metal Alchemist. There's some definite influence there. I was rereading it maybe last year, and I was like, oh shit, because I hadn't read Berserk until about 3 years ago. And so
I didn't know you were that recent on it. Okay.
Yeah. My roommate, like the last year I had a roommate before I moved into the house, was like, you should read it. And I would always do this thing where I was like, I still do. I'm like, oh yeah, I'll put it on the list. And he was onto my, my shit. So he was like, no, you're reading it. And he bought them all and started handing them to me.
That's what he wanted them too. You bought me volume 1 and I read it in one sitting. So I was like, all right, cool. I'm in.
Yeah, it's super good. But I think you'd like Full Metal Alchemist, and that too also has some of the humor that you're kind of allergic to. But I think it's done.
All right. I guess we're just gonna go ahead and talk about Berserk now. Look, Falcon and Millennium Empire, and then guys, I'm not gonna spoil anything for you here. I'm just gonna say that I think the reason I like the Golden Age the best so far is because there was no Puck or no Isidro. Every time either one of those characters is in the issue now, it's just like I feel like they are not in the right story. I feel like Lift and Stormlight Archive, and like, did you get lost in the wrong universe and you just popped up here with this other cast? Because I started doing something. This is an experiment. I started just like ignoring their dialogue for a few panels, and I realized it changed nothing. None of the other characters, they're interacting, and none of the other characters are interacting with them at all. It's just like, oh my God, you guys are obnoxious. So
yeah, you gotta think about them sort of like R2 and 3PO in a lot of ways.
the most annoying versions of 3PO, yeah.
I kind of like them. Isidro won me over by making a couple prequel memes. So there are a couple.
I mean,
Revenge
I'm
of the Sith
open. I
references.
think he's a good enough writer. I'm open that he will get me to like them a little more. But right now, it's just like their antics, even during the serious moments, is starting to feel not quite MCU to me, but like Attack of the Clones level, like goofball humor. They're just like, this is not anything anyone would be doing in this situation.
You're not wrong, and that is definitely sort of a staple of the medium. It's not just it's sort of a, I don't want to say it's a cultural thing, because then people will think I'm being weird. But like
that's the shit that kept me away for a long time. So.
Yeah, no, I get it. But the Japanese sort of sense of genre is not the same as in the West, right? And the way that they'll plot things too, right? They'll be they don't really care about tone exactly the same way that we do. So they'll do this like really laminated like tragedy, comedy, horror like alternation thing that you don't get in in Western productions. And it's weird, right? Because like someone's getting ripped in half, and then the next panel, like Puck is making a Hulk Hogan joke, and there is a Hulk Hogan joke.
I've seen the Star Wars ones. I'm like, wow, okay.
Yeah, they continue. There was a Jar Jar Binks. There was a Jar Jar Binks joke in like the penultimate chapter. They keep going, and yeah, I mean, Puck and Isidro are the ones who really do that. But I'm not above that sort of humor myself. I don't quite go as far.
I'm not heartless. I like some fun once in a while, some hijinks. And okay, you're starting to push me, but when it's like I said, when there's serious stuff going on and you guys are acting like goofballs in the corner, I'm like, I don't want that right now.
Yeah, it's tough. I think Berserk's probably the most extreme example of that I can think of, just because when it's extreme, it's so extreme. But I give Falcon of the Millennium a chance.
I'm not stopping. I'm on volume 25. I think it goes through 34. So yeah, I'm definitely not stopping. I'm just saying I think it's my least favorite arc so far, and that's
it really picks up, I think. And you've got Serpico, and I don't like Farnese that much, but I really like Serpico. Yeah. And you've got some other characters too that I think are worth sticking around for. Isidro is probably the weakest of the bunch. But
hey, I don't know if Lupe is asking me or you. What are you reading right now? What are you reading? I mean, everybody knows what I'm reading, but what are you reading right now?
I just started listening to the Andy Serkis recording of The Hobbit last night.
Oh, nice.
Figured it was about time.
It's very popular on my Discord right now. Yes.
Yeah, they bullied me into doing it too. So,
how is he doing? I mean, would you say that his Gollum voice is pretty good, or not as good as the guy that did it for the movies?
It's okay. I haven't gotten that far yet. But I know he goes full Gollum for the Gollum scenes, which is great. I do feel like. So I grew up with the Rob Inglis recordings. That was sort of how I absorbed Tolkien as a child. And these feel a little bit like he's reading faster. I don't think he's like the other characters' voices. He's not quite going as hard on. And I miss how musical the original audiobooks actually like stop, and he kind of like sings every song. And there was a little bit of the Howard Shore Far Over the Misty Mountains take in the audiobook. That was nice, but the That's What Bilbo Baggins Hates was just sort of like tossed off, I thought. So as much as I like Andy Serkis, there's still definitely some advantages I think the English recording has. but I'm enjoying that. And then before that, what was the last thing? I'd been reading Michael Shea's Niftaline, which I didn't really like. So I put that one down.
You'll be happy to know that your last live stream actually finally got me to put a Tim Powers book on my to be read list.
Which one?
The Anubis one, because you made all the comparisons to it, and I'm like, well, I'm interested to see this now because
good. I'm glad that.
And I looked it up after you said that. I looked it up, and there's like a bunch of Reddit threads about it. I'm like, okay. So
there's that is sort of a, I don't want to call it a conspiracy theory, but yeah, I think it was like 3 or 4 years before it came out, and there is, like I said, a clown with magic powers that lives in the sewers and hurts people.
What a coincidence if they really just both had this idea. That's amazing.
Yeah, and that sort of thing happens. There are, weird coincidences, like me and Red Rising. But
apparently my arm is lining up with the Emperor's arm. Here we go. There.
Oh yeah, there you go.
There we go. I didn't know what you were talking about. Okay, I see.
Oh, that's awesome. Can I get in the helmet? Not quite. Not without standing up.
So someone on the Discord asked if there was going to be Sun Eater spoilers in this, and I said I don't think so because I'm pretty sure you want people to get to read it. But you know what? Scott actually said the best way to avoid Sun Eater spoilers is to read Sun Eater.
That's true. That is a foolproof way to fix the problem. But no, if we get into that territory, we'll preface it pretty hard.
I don't think we'll do that to anybody.
Catch up on a couple of these things.
Sure.
Let's see. Sun Eater Traveling reminds me of No Man's Sky. Yeah, I can see that. I played that like right when it came out when there was nothing in it. And
now it's actually a good game, and I don't play it. But yeah, I was very upset when it came out. Yeah.
Yeah, I was so disappointed because they were running around. They were on like late night TV talking about how innovative the game was going to be, and it is. Like technologically, it's fascinating.
Didn't make it fun to play though. The coolest thing I think off the base game when it launched is you could get ships that looked like an ornithopter from Dune. That was about it. That's about the only thing I liked. And being able to name the first desert planet I found, Arrakis, was cool. But outside of that, I didn't have a lot of fun with it the first go around. But I tried playing the updated version of it. It's really good. I was just like, I don't have time to do this right now.
Yeah, that's one of those games. Like I played a lot of Minecraft when it was in beta, like before it was just 5-year-olds.
Oh, is this like you like that band before they got big? Is that what you're doing right now?
Yeah. Oh, I like every time I see one of my wife's like nieces and nephews and like, have you played Minecraft? And I was like, I bought Minecraft before it was a service.
Like before it was cool.
Yeah. And so I played that a lot. Like I would be sitting in like a lecture hall and like building a castle, listening to my professors. But that was one of those things I'm like, there's no end state to this. And if I keep playing this, I will never be productive in my life. And I feel like No Man's Sky is kind of in that bucket. No, I don't think I'm going back. Headline news. Christopher is a fraud. Yes, Madison, I'm a fraud. It's true. I like Jake was saying in the Discord, I actually just time traveled and all of my books are plagiarism. So from the future, they're just nonfiction. I didn't make any of it up. Let's see. Scott loved the first 2 episodes of Foundation. He's gonna read the book. Well, that's cool. What do I plan to write after Sun Eater? Well, Severian, since you asked. I love New Sun. But the original plan was, and I think it still is the plan, is to do some in-universe standalone. So it won't be the Sun Eater series, but it'll still be the universe. Because there's always a trick when you move to like a new thing, and like people, if people are coming to you because they want space opera and you suddenly start writing detective novels, like people will be like, the hell is this? And then they abandon you. So I'm going to try and slow roll if I'm going to do any fantasy or things like that. And I do have kind of an even more science fantasy idea I kind of want to lean into.
If I could interject, I would love to see you write fantasy because I'm not gonna lie, some of my favorite parts of Demon and White was the stuff in court. And I was like, this is great stuff here. So hopefully we get some more of that in book 4.
We do get a court. I won't say whose. But it's a little bit different. But that's as far as I'm going to go. So if
you wrote fantasy, would you go full on like Song of Ice and Fire politics, or would you go like full on magic and unicorns and shit? How would you? What kind of level of fantasy would you do if you were writing?
I honestly can't decide. I am because I've got kind of an idea. Like I do have I've teased this before. There's an epic fantasy map in that corner, tucked behind my DVD rack, and I keep threatening to show it to people at some point. But I've been working on it for a while, and it's I could do all sorts of things with it because I'm doing like a whole world map, so I could do something that's sort of like sword and sandal, do like a Greco-Roman thing because there's not as much of that. I think would be fun. So I could do sort of like a classical instead of medieval fantasy, which could be cool. But I could go like full on, Song of Ice and Fire, high medieval Crusades kind of thing, which is another period of history that I am super interested in.
I'm on board with all these.
So
all these are good.
I've thought about doing stuff like that, but at the same time too, like if you're gonna write a fantasy novel, they're like, why not do giants and dragons and magic and go all in? I don't like fantasy when like you're using like water sprites to like water the vegetables. Like that's too much, right? Like if your magic is that integrated into society, it's not really magic anymore.
Shots fired, you guys.
Was that like a specific thing?
I mean, maybe shots fired from me. It sounds very much like you are describing Sprin from the Stormlight Archive by Brandon Sanderson. You ever heard of him?
I've heard of Brandon, but I haven't read.
He's done a few things, but what you just described. So basically, I think we've talked about this in the past. You'd probably want to go more soft magic, right?
Oh yeah, for sure. Like I don't like the whole magic system thing because it just the way that people talk about it. Because if you look at historical magic, like yeah, sure, like there's like John Dee and his symbolic magic and stuff like that, historically, but the way everyone talks about it, they're just designing like role-playing game mechanics, and a book is not an RPG, right? RPGs are great, but they're not books, right? And so whenever I like talk to someone who's building a fantasy world, I'm like, okay, so my magic system works like this. And if they start describing anything that sounds like mana points, like I get irritated. Like that's not, I don't want to read that book. Like I don't like lit RPG. I know there are people who are big fans of that, but like,
is that what lit RPG means?
Lit
RPG, and I'm like, I have no idea. So that's what that means.
Lit RPG is like the book has like game mechanics or like is explicitly about a game in some way, either or.
I don't have any interest to read a Dungeons and Dragons manual. Sorry.
Yeah. Unless I want to learn.
Unless I'm playing Dungeons and Dragons. Yeah.
Yeah. So like one example, and this is one I actually like. There's an anime called Dot Hack, right? That's about an MMO, and it's about a kid who gets stuck in it and can't leave, right? And he's like in a coma in real life. And it's the production on it's great. There were games for the PS2; those are really fun. But it was like very self-consciously, you're playing a game about a game, right? You're watching a show about a game. A lot of lit RPGs like that. Some of it, my understanding is like, no, this is just the world, but like everybody is aware that they have like like stats basically, or that they have a class. And I don't like that. Because like real people don't have classes. Like, you might have a job, but like you can meet a factory worker who memorizes Shakespeare, right, and has a 150 IQ. Like people don't fit into the little like video game boxes like that, and that's not a character. In the same way, like the magic, like if you can tell me like how many mana points it takes to cast Fireball, like that's not literature for me, right? So I would
down somewhere in the middle. Like I appreciate a good magic system, but I don't like the book to be about the magic system. And I think I'm always going to be a character. Kind of what where's it Thomas said there. He says a fantasy novel has to draw you in and immerse you in the world. It's harder to do with the prevalent magic, but if done well, I don't mind. So yeah, if it happens organically, sure. Like I said, I really love the magic system in Lightbringer. Of course, he took his eye off the ball in that series. But yeah, if it's just about the magic system, it's like, oh yeah, there's these characters over here. I'm always going to prefer you give me the time of the characters. I like it like Tolkien did. Yeah, Gandalf, he can use magic. Why? Because he's a fucking wizard. That's
He's
why.
a wizard. That's it.
That's
right?
what I needed to know. Okay, cool.
Yeah, I have this sense that if it were me, like, I don't want my point of view character really to be the one using magic, although I have an idea that would break that rule. But like, if you can, and I'm kind of breaking that rule already, right, with Hadrian to an extent, because whenever you have to explain how these things are accomplished, it demystifies them, right? And if you're demystifying the mystic, you're like, that's missing the point to me, right? Because like the word occult means hidden, right? And you just kind of like explain all this stuff, then it's not occult anymore. It's not a secret. And that's one of the things that I like about horror literature is like these things are very rarely ever explained, right? And that's why these things stay scary. If you learn everything about a monster, right? Suddenly, like if we explained where Cthulhu came from and what his motivations were, he's not Cthulhu anymore, right? And then then you can beat him. And
well, I mean, Lovecraft himself said it's not just about fear; it's about fear of the unknown. You're just breaking his own rules there if you tell him what Cthulhu is.
Yeah, so. It's beside the point, right? And that's not to say that there aren't different stories with different rules that you can do. So, but
you can just not explain it like Gene Wolfe and the Wizard Knight. I assume you'll know what that means, but okay.
Oh well,
I've heard the Gene Wolfe stuff. A lot of it doesn't make sense, and he doesn't care that it doesn't make sense. You just deal with it.
it probably makes sense like once you really pay attention. Like I maintain that like Book of the New Sun is not as complicated as people make it out to be. It's just that the characters don't understand, right? And so there are enough clues in the text for you to figure it out if you pay attention. But even if you don't, you're like, weird stuff's going on and I love it. Or at least I love it. Your mileage may vary.
That's about every 30 sentences in Malazan. Well, I don't know what that means, but okay, cool.
Yeah, we'll just go with it. Luke's asking, are your eyes blue or green?
They're blue. They are blue, but I'm on a webcam right now, so who knows what they look like. This isn't my nice, expensive camera. This is my $40 camera from when I first started this channel. So
yeah, well, mine are green.
I'm this big, so it doesn't really matter. So
yeah. We tried to make the screen a little bit bigger, but like I said, it's first time using StreamYard to talk to another person.
Oh, it's cool, and I got Emperor arm, so it's cool.
True. Yeah.
Hey, speaking of emperors, let's talk about Dune here for a second, because it's going to come up. It's got to, right?
Yeah, it was one of the two things I made a note for.
Yeah, do you think it's like total horse shit that the rest of the world besides us gets to see this a month early? I mean, does that make any sense? I mean, it was made in America. Why is it? Or actually, I guess not. It was made in Jordan, wasn't it? So anyway, I'm sorry. It's made
in Jordan and in Hungary, I think, because they had to get all those old Soviet buildings. But I mean, obviously, I want to see it. It's not as bullshit as it being like a year late. That bothers me more than everybody else. Everybody else seeing it. It's just. Like, finally, there was a movie I wanted to see, and then, like, the world fell apart, which I know is, like, a really petty, like, silly thing to say, because obviously a bunch of horrible stuff's happened,
Sure, but I mean, we'd be lying if we didn't say it, yeah.
But, like, it would figure, like, like, of all the movies that get delayed this long, right, it's, like, the one that I, really, really wanted to see. But, the good news, right, is I think this probably only increases the chances that we get the second one, right? Because they're not putting it on HBO Max.
I mean, pretty much the reviews are pretty glowing from not critics. I'm talking about from audiences. That's what really
normal
matters.
People. Yeah,
and I'm hearing there's a lot of people are like, I haven't read the book and I liked it a lot. And that's what I want to hear. I want everybody to read it, but if you don't get those casuals, man, you're not. I went on my weekly update and I said, I think maybe I'm just feeling optimistic. I think we're gonna get part 2 regardless, because I think the movie is going to get Oscar buzz. It's going to get some nominations for sure, even if it's just for technical stuff. I mean, look back at Arrival. They got like 8 Academy Award nominations. So, they like Denny V, and obviously they know how big it's like. People are like, oh, well, they're not going to give Lord of the Rings any credit because it's, fantasy. And it got huge. It got tons of nominations. And then it, completely sweeped everything. It's last year. So I think that this is going to get a lot of award buzz. And I know that Warner, I don't know about how much of this is Warner's decision or Legendary's decision. But I feel like Warner loves getting some nice award buzz, and I think they're going to be like, yeah, let's go ahead and do part 2. So, but if you believe what they're saying, that they know that they've kind of, cut his feet off here by making it be on HBO Max, on the same day. They've said that HBO Max views are going to matter just as much to them as audience as a theater view. So if they're true about that, I can't think of anybody that has HBO Max that's not going to say, well, let's see what this is about.
Yeah. Oh, totally. My uncle has sort of a drive-in theater at his house, right? He got a couple projectors and he hangs the screen on the front of his garage door, right, from the gutter, basically.
He's gonna have a showing.
So we're gonna do that. I'm still gonna go pay and see it IMAX too, but that's like second best thing right there.
Right.
And,
I mean, like, you and I aren't going to watch this like a dozen times at least, right? I mean,
exactly. Especially if it's good, right?
Right.
Which I'm convinced that it will be. The other good thing too is, did you see it's like outperforming its box office projections?
Yeah. They
by,
predicted, like I said, there's some of the smaller markets is that they predicted like 20 million and like doubled that, like 37 or something. That's first weekend, so that's very encouraging. So it looks like it's going to come down to the States and China, the two biggest markets to really put this over the top. I don't expect it to make like, MCU money, but I think it's going to make more money than people predicted. And it'd just be nice for Denny V to have a win, honestly. It seems like all of his movies are just like cult status. It seems like this will be the chance for him to finally have a big breakout financially, successful critically and financially. So
I think he'll get there. I think it was very clever casting all of these very recognizable superhero actors. Because you got Jason Momoa, who I still think is a weird pick. I'm willing to be surprised. Like, of all the things in the casting, I'm like, I don't know that he can do anything except the drunk scene.
I just can't. The Spice one. Yeah, here's the thing. I think that Denny V is a good enough director. He's probably said, look, you're not going to play dude bro on this like you've done everything else. Especially since if you guys know spoilers, if you read the books, that this role only gets increasingly more important as the series goes on. So I think if he ends up making Messiah, maybe passes the torch to someone else to make children, obviously this is going to be an important character. So I just can't see him doing his usual Momoa-isms as this character. So he liked this. He wanted enough to be a part of this that he actually shaved after he said he would never shave. That obviously it was important enough to him. So, but honestly, grow it back, dude. You look weird without facial hair.
I could probably get it back for Duncan too, but yeah, I don't know. I wonder too, because like all the actors seem like so excited to have been a part of this. Yeah. If maybe someone wasn't like, look, Jason, like you want to be taken, you want to be like an actor's actor, like this is your shot. And I wonder if that's sort of like his, like, it's not like the man needs a breakout role, but like if he can break out of his typecast a little bit, this might be.
What I'm concerned about is that they're changing things, because Momoa is one of the lead ones out there right now saying how much he's ready to start filming the sequel, and I'm like, well, I mean, if you've read the book, so I makes me wonder how much they're changing here, or they're extending.
I don't know. I wonder too, right? Like. Because I imagine, I mean, we just spoiled Dune, but like I don't know that he'd be in part 2, right? But like, and I imagine that would be right around
unless it's the very beginning. I mean, knowing where this movie ends, where they split the book up, it's like I don't know, unless they're just prolonging some stuff, maybe. I just can't see it. It's people telling me that are big fans saying that this is the most faithfully adapted book to film they've seen in a long time. I just can't imagine they would change that detail.
Yeah, I wonder if it's just spin, right?
I see that.
Sort of like how they've just had to lean into the Tom Holland spoils thing, right? Like if it's just some sort of marketing angle, that's possible. But I do think we're going to get part 2. It looks like all these foreign markets are bringing in maybe most of the budget by the time it gets here, and I'm hopeful. I'm hopeful to carry it over the line even with HBO Max. But they've gone all in anyway, right? They've got the series they're going to do too, so like they don't want to just drop it now. That would be a pretty awful sort of abort mission.
I don't know. I know that Legendary, I keep blaming Warner Brothers, but I know Legendary is really the one that's in control of this. But Warner Brothers is just a distributor. But I have that fear of anything attached to Warner Brothers and them being like just completely clueless on knowing what audiences want. And I could see this being like a big hit and then being like, oh, we didn't know people like this. Like they do with just about everything that ends up being a big hit for them. And then them saying, okay, well, we've got to interfere in the sequel because I've already heard this stuff about, oh, well, if we get to make Dune Part 2, it's going to be all about Chani. And I'm like, wait a second. What? That sounds like studio interference to me. But you called me down on that one.
I have a thought about that. Do we talk about it on the last one?
I think we talked about it on Discord.
On the Discord, yeah. Because if you really think about it, this is pretty maybe a hot take, but I think that Jessica's the main character.
Oh, I agree. I agree.
Right? It's Paul's story, but it's not told through his eyes that much, right? And I was thinking about the scene late in the book, right, where Paul is in a trance, right, and Chani gets called out.
Water Life, Paul's going to be maybe an hour of the movie. He's going to be unconscious, so yeah, you can see that.
I would imagine as he becomes, more and more a figure of history, right, that we start seeing him from the outside. And so, like, if what he means is, like, this will be Paul's story from Chani's eyes as he sort of continually sort of moves away from ordinary humanity, right? And I mean that, like, sure, in terms of his abilities, but also just as he becomes this big historical figure, like, you don't want characters like that to be the main focus. One of the interesting things about Game of Thrones, right, is that, like, with the exception of Dany, like, none of the main characters are the people who are really, really in charge, right? They're always around, like, Joffrey and Tywin are not point of view characters, right? And having that sort of off-focus point of view, like, sort of lets you look at the big players kind of the way that history would, right? At least sort of, right? There's sort of this, like, you're a step removed from power, right? And Paul comes back into focus in Messiah, but as he starts to sort of be this big thing at the end of the book, it's mostly, Dune's already omniscient, but you're getting more of like Jessica's thoughts, right, about him, or Gurney's to an extent, or Chani's. And so that didn't actually freak me out that much when he said, it's really kind of Chani's story. I'm like, okay, I would have said Jessica's, but, like, fair enough.
I just can't see Denny V's been in charge this whole time. I just can't see him aggressive. He's already pretty pissed off about the HBO Max thing. I just can't see him saying, okay, well, we're going to take this out of your hands now, but we want you to come back. I can see him being like, kiss my ass,
Yeah,
he's got enough clout that he's not going to let that happen. I don't think so.
I don't think so either.
You're talking about the ledge there. So what's something that you haven't seen in the trailers, or I'll count myself as saying that I didn't see in that preview, that you're most looking forward to on the screen? While you think about it, I've got to say the Baron, because I haven't seen the Baron yet. We've seen a second in the trailer, and not just the voice. I want to see I want to see that they finally get the goddamn suspensors right, because the dude can't fly. Okay, he doesn't have a rocket pack. He really just hovers off the floor. So I want to see that, and I just want to see just the take on it, because not being the red hair right away, I was like, okay, that's an interesting take and stuff like that. But I don't know. I'm just interested to see how, because I think he's a great actor. So I'm interested.
Oh yeah, I love Stellan Skarsgord.
The only thing that when they cast him, I was like, wow, I just thought that you guys would cast a heavier actor, but you can use a belly suit. It's not a big deal.
I'd had my fingers crossed for Vincent D'Onofrio. He was sort of my pick there, but I love the Daredevil.
I think Brendan is it Brendan Gleeson or yeah, Brendan Gleeson.
Yeah, Brendan. Yeah, they're Matt Gleasons.
Yeah, that was
He'd be great too.
Yeah, I think so.
But yeah, I think the Baron's probably top of my list. I wish the lack of Fade Routh is weird. I
don't think they've cast it yet. I don't think they cast Fade or the Emperor or Irulan. Yeah,
I don't think they have either. I imagine. Yeah, it'd be a weird thing to keep secret. Like, why bother? So I imagine that, like, part 2 opens maybe with the Coliseum scene with Fade, right? That's where I would maybe start it if it were me. So I'm imagining they'll go there, and that's fine, because you maybe need to play up Rabban a bit. I think Rabban's in 2 scenes in the book, and they'd be a fool not to lean into the meme magic of having Thanos trying to kill Drax for killing his family. So
think about that.
So I'm hoping they do a bit of that. So I got my fingers crossed, but Baron's top of my list. I just still want to see more of, like, the sets. The big trailer they did, what was that, a couple months ago now, really showed some of the costumes and stuff, but I still don't have a sense of, like, what any thing is gonna look like in terms of place.
You
And one
won't
of
be happy. You
yeah,
will be happy.
I know when you said that it made me feel better, but I like the scene, the bit of the box scene that we've seen, right? Like, why is there so much empty space on that floor, right?
Hmm.
And it's sort of the same problem I have with Blade Runner 2049, which I love, is that until he gets to Vegas, most of the places he goes to like feel like stage play sets, right? Where you've got like we put a chair in the middle of the stage, right? And everything's really sort of empty around that. And I know that's sort of like the look they were going for, like Wallace's sort of pyramid and stuff. Um, but I just, I would like to see some more. I love the Baroque vibe of the sets in the Lynch movie. It's one of the things I like. I love the way that Castle Caladan looks in the Lynch movie and the house in Arakeen and stuff.
Yeah,
Um,
I'm interested to see Arakeen because the clip that they showed us in the movie is in the ornithopter over the desert, so I didn't actually see the palace or anything like that. So I'll be interested. Like you said, it doesn't feel new. It needs to feel. I mean, this is a desert planet. It does need to feel kind of kind of dirty. I lived in. I think so. I am kind of concerned about that. But what I saw on Caladan, I think you'll be mostly happy. But I do understand that apprehension there for sure because I kind of felt that too with the box scene.
Yeah, and I don't expect to be disappointed by any of it. It's just something I guess I want to see more of. I don't really expect to be let down by anything, really. Although, what do you think of the score? Having said that,
I've only listened to bits and pieces of it because I kind of want that experience when I see it to not feel like, okay, this is that part of the soundtrack I really like, because I did that with God, what was it? All the Hobbit scores. I did that with Batman v Superman, and I mean, that was a different conversation. But I have this I feel like when I have the score memorized before the movie comes out, I feel like I have already kind of pictured something in my head from that soundtrack. So I'm trying to listen to it, but I will say the stuff that I've listened to, I don't know. I guess I was expecting something more epic from Hans Zimmer than what I've heard so far. Obviously, he went for something very different, which I get, but I was also kind of hoping that we get some kind of like theme or tune that I couldn't get out of my head, like I usually do with Hans Zimmer. And I don't know. This seems like this is going more the route of like some of the Batman Nolan movies do, where it's a lot of noise, ambient noise and stuff, more so than like themes.
Yeah, I'm hoping it'll work more in situ because I was missing the same thing. Because it's sort of like there are two Hans Zimmers. There's like the Batman one or the Nolan one, I guess, because the like Inception score is the same thing. I remember the blah noise, but that's it. And then there's Pirates of the Caribbean, right? Like which Hans are we going to get?
You can't get out of your head, yeah.
Yeah. So, and I wanted something that was like Star Wars tier, right? But it's still interesting though, so I don't know what to think either. I listened to the whole like sketchbook thing, and there were a couple of moments where I was like, "This is going to be really cool," and then there were like 20-minute stretches where I realized I wasn't paying much attention. So let's see. Let's try to catch up on a couple of these. Sure. Satish Elavandar says, 1 a.m. where I live. I have to go to work tomorrow, and I'm listening to these two gentlemen talk about nothing. Is that a facepalm emoji? Or I think it is. Well, I'm sorry. Hope you get some sleep.
Hope it was worth it.
Let's see. Hi, Dennis. Welcome back. We lost Madison somewhere. She had to abandon us. Looking for some questions here. So that's what lit RPG means. Yeah, it's a thing. Julian says, by the way, could not get in touch with a publisher here in Bulgaria. Hope something will come up. Yeah, please let me know. If you've got a connection somewhere, I would love to talk to somebody. But it's sort of difficult when you don't know the language or the lay of things on the ground. So there's that Wizard Knight thing. Man, I'm way behind. Holy cow. Finishing up my Dune reread. Awesome. Where do we go? Every time I scroll, I like lose track. May I ask your thoughts on Black Lagoon and the Meta Barons? I haven't read the Meta Barons yet. Mike, have you read that?
I don't even know what that is, so no.
It is a space opera graphic novel series by Jodorowsky.
Okay.
Yeah. Okay. I did not know what it was until I got a review that said, Christopher, you clearly ripped this off. And I was like, Jodorowsky went and did a space opera.
Your next is Muad'Dib level.
yeah, exactly. that's I time traveled and stole everything. I do really want to read it though because it's the art is amazing. And I haven't had a chance yet. Sorry, Stillian.
Yeah, sorry about the Duncan, Idaho, 70, 60, or how many years is it held? A 50-something-year-old spoiler. Sorry about that, guy.
Oh, dude, I got in trouble once. I was I was in a Doctor Who fan group on Facebook when I was in college, and I said, Arthur dies at the end, right? And because this was right when the BBC Merlin thing was ending, which I've never watched, right? I just like made a passing reference to Arthur and Mordred killing each other at the Battle of Kenlan, and everybody was like, dude, spoilers. And like, one, I haven't seen the show. Two, you're like 1,500 years too late.
Yeah, right.
Holy cow! Like, if you don't know that,
that's why I said in my most recent one, is it really a spoiler if it's something that's based off of history? I mean,
Oh
like I was talking about the lady in that book I'm going to read called The Girl Next Door, which is based off of a real story. And the lady who commits all the atrocities in that book, actually, I was like, in real life, she got paroled in the 80s. And I was like, I guess if that ruined the ending for you, sorry. I mean,
yeah, it's just crazy. It's sort of like, Jesus gets better, right? Like, like how
oh man, I get people that get mad about talking about Hobbit spoilers and stuff. I'm like, dude, guys, I feel like this is like, even after the movies, I feel like this is like just common pop culture at this point. Can you really spoiler something that's fucking 80 years old? I don't know.
Yeah,
I try not to, because I hate spoiling stuff for people. I do, but
yeah, I don't want to like be malicious, and ruin anyone's good time. But like, it is tricky when it's like, like, oh yeah, Achilles dies.
Wait a second. What do you mean Gandalf comes back? Yeah.
Like, I just don't know what to do. Right. Rosebud is the sled. Right.
Like, I said that in one of my Wheel of Time videos. Like, is this going to be like a whole Gandalf coming back part? I'm like, what do you mean Gandalf comes back? I was like, I hope you're joking.
It's just hard to, like, this is like the water, right? That we swim in, and then people don't know. It's just crazy. Matthias asks, is Gene Wolfe's Wizard Knight any good? Yes. It's awesome.
Are there any Gene Wolfes that you don't like though?
There are ones I haven't read yet, so I don't know. I feel like Peace, which is usually held up as like his other masterpiece besides New Sun, is something that I wouldn't really be into. It's a bit more like grounded and like on Earth, and I usually don't like sort of things like that. And it's kind of like a slice of life thing, but it's also kind of a harder story. It just isn't. That doesn't sound like my sort of thing. But no, I haven't read any Gene Wolfe thing I didn't like. There's a lot of stuff I've read where I'm like, I need to go and read my notes, make sure I got that right. But not all of it I know as well as New Sun at this point.
Do you take notes while you read? Because I take notes while I read. But it's more like so I remember to talk about it when I do a video for it. But
yeah, I don't usually. Because I usually listen, right? If I'm gonna if I'm reading something for fun, it's usually an audiobook these days, just because if I'm sitting down to like do anything book related, it's going to be work.
Sure.
So it's if there's not an audiobook, it's really tricky for me to get to it either, which is part of the challenge with the books I was showing everybody on that video I did. Is I just
so how do you read manga then? I don't think is there audiobooks for manga yet?
No, those I'll read because that's like very quick, right? Like the time investment is you can
talk about quick, dude. I read Uzumaki by Ito in like a day and a half, and that's a big thing.
Yeah, I was about to say that's like that, isn't it?
It's super quick. I know you said you haven't read any of him yet, but man, it's out there. I mean, it's very Lovecraftian style horror with like a little bit of Clive Barker body horror attached to it. It's messed up, but I'll definitely be reading more of his stuff for sure.
Yeah, I know what it's about. It sure seems downright unsettling.
Yeah, it's weird. You're like, oh, I told my wife, I was like, yeah, it's just about spirals taking over this town. She's like, what kind of weird shit they got you reading? No, it's actually really good though.
Yeah, I have a lot of friends who are big fans of E-Tail, and they've been trying to get me on the same train. It does seem particularly unsettling. So
yeah, that's definitely a word I would use. Is there's going to be a good sense of dread the whole time you're reading that. And I said I think he's a master of like the page turn and that you see the characters like on like. And you have to turn the page to see what they're seeing, and he does that really. I don't know if that's him or if that's the publisher, the way that they've lined it up in the drawing, but I imagine that's kind of like his thing because he's apparently really, really goddamn good at it. So, but yeah, it's like I said, a sense of dread. And you're like, oh my god, I want to turn the page and see what the hell what nightmare fuel I'm about to see. So,
Yeah, I imagine that's probably him because usually, at least in Western comics, like the artist um, has a lot of latitude about what goes on what page and stuff, right? Like when I did my Thor story, Steve wanted an extra page because he wanted to sort of break stuff up differently, and they were just like, yeah, go for it. So I imagine that he like knows how he's ending a page to make you turn it. But
Lupa wants to give Switch a hug.
He
Switch
needs one.
Snitch.
He needs one. I mean, which character doesn't need one at this point? And I've been a little bit further than you guys. It's only going to get worse. Yeah, like when they made Leet Kynes a lady in the movie.
Yes, and I've seen her, and she's quite good. She sold me in the clip that I saw. So
yeah, I'm not too worried about that one. I would prefer. People don't take too much license with this sort of thing, but that's not like they like changed like Paul.
It's not Pauling Atreides, So.
Yeah, that's enough. Down the way that it's not going to really ruin anything. I don't like when people mess with like really key characters, but
sure.
That one doesn't bother me. Let's see. Cillian says saw Stellan Skarsgard girl with dragon tattoo. He was horrifying. Yeah. You've seen that version?
Swedish version of those films, but yeah, he was really good. I liked him more than Daniel Craig. I don't know. That was really what I saw with Blomkvist. But yeah. Have you read those books?
I have not.
I read two of them. Two of the three I've read.
Yeah, I just haven't had a chance. I've only actually seen the Daniel Craig movie. I haven't seen the Swedish ones. And I like Noomi Rapace a lot.
Yeah.
But I'm like one of those few people who like will find redeeming things in Prometheus. So, which is a movie I don't really like, but man, I like David a lot. So
yeah, well, Michael Fassbender's great and everything.
Yeah, and he's
James Bond. Damn it! All right,
he'd be great as James Bond.
Yes.
He kind of looks like the old drawings too. So, but. No, I mean he's also like he's playing a robot who's playing Peter O'Toole playing Lawrence of Arabia, which is my favorite movie. And so like that sort of weird like meta thing, it's a great performance. But the movie, I get why people don't like it.
I get why people don't like the one that came after it. I don't even remember what it's called anymore.
Covenant. Yeah.
Covenant.
Let's see.
Hey, did you see the Sandman? Have you read Sandman? Neil Gaiman's Sandman?
I have not read that. I've read American Gods. I've read Stardust, and I've seen like a lot of his TV, but I've never read Sandman.
Yeah, Brian, I did see the Sandman footage. Pretty neat. Remains to be seen. I've gotten so put up the wall, cautious optimism with adaptations these days, especially Netflix, because Netflix is apparently American for taking civil liberties with your content. So basically, I'm just waiting to see. What I would love for it to be good, but what that little bit that we saw, it looks neat. So it looks like they're Neil Gaiman's involved in it, so that's encouraging. So hopefully it's not going to get away from him too much, because all I can think of, guys, is that Preacher adaptation. Preacher is my favorite comic ever, and that AMC adaptation is literally, well, this feels like those characters I remember, but I don't remember any of this fucking happening. So that's kind of how I'm approaching it, and like I love the Sandman comic.
I watched the first season of that. I liked Cassidy a lot. I haven't read it. So.
Yeah, like I said, I thought him and Jesse, the castings were really, really good. But it just more and more, it was like, you guys didn't read this shit at all, did you? And it's weird because Seth Rogen is the one who got that going. He's a huge fan of the comic books. I was like, you had a network that would let you do the crazy, messed up stuff that's in that comic, and you didn't do it. You did your own thing. And I don't know. Like, I'm all about you don't need a page for page adaptation. It's great when it works out. Look at like Watchmen. I think Watchmen, that's a great adaptation when you're going straight literal from the page, or the first season of Game of Thrones. You're like, wow, it's like literally page for page almost. But I don't need that. But I need it to be the story that I remember, Yeah,
so. you can't change the spirit of the thing, right? But you can take you got to make some changes to like fit the fact that you're not making the same thing, right? Um, I don't get like when they did the shot for shot remake of Psycho. They like remade Psycho. Like
Yeah, that was
why?
a weird
Like
choice.
like why didn't you remake it shot for shot? It exists. Just go watch it again.
You know what I like to do is with remakes is like, why don't you remake some of those movies that they tried the first time and it didn't work out? And you know, it's still a really good story. Why don't you try again instead of trying to remake movies that were already great? That makes no sense to me. No, no one needs to remake The Princess Bride. How about you try to remake Dungeons and Dragons, like actual fucking failure that could have been a really good movie? And they are, yes. That's stuff that I'm in support of. It's like Clash of Titans. Yeah, it didn't work out, but I can see why they wanted to remake it, because technology had evolved to the point where they can make really awesome looking Kraken, you know?
I kind of like those movies though, the new ones.
Yeah, but you didn't even watch the second one.
I like the second one a lot. Bill Nye is Feistus,
Really?
which is definitely worth. It's definitely worth seeing just for that. He's because I love that guy.
I'm waiting. Me and my kid are going to read what Percy Jackson books, and I'm thinking he'll get really interested in Greek mythology. Then I'll show him Clash of the Titans. Then I think.
Oh, cool. You might not want to show him the Percy Jackson movie, though. I understand it's terrible.
Oh no. I'd never seen my wife more angry watching an adaptation than when we were watching it. And I was like, "Well, I haven't read it. Is it okay if I appreciate it?" And then I read it. And I'm like, "Wow, they definitely didn't read it." I thought Aragon was a bad adaptation. Jesus.
Oh my god. Yeah, I was so excited about that because I think I've talked about this, but I was a big Aragon fan just because it was like
about the age, right?
Yeah, well, I was about the age, but he was also like not 40 and writing books, so I thought, oh crap, like I can actually do this. It's loud. And it was cool. I got to meet him at DragonCon like 3 years ago, and I thanked him for that, which was neat. And he was real nice. I haven't read the sci-fi book yet. I hear
I'm hoping that now that Disney has the rights, that they'll make a Disney Plus series out of Inheritance and try again. Again, you're going to do remakes. Do remakes of stuff that you know you've got a good property, and they dropped the ball the first time. Try again. I mean, guys, you remember the Incredible Hulk movie that Ang Lee made? Did that say, oh, we can't use the Hulk in the MCU now because we made that bad movie one time? It worked out for him, right? It's like DC being scared to use Green Lantern because of that Ryan Reynolds movie a fucking decade ago. Use Green Lantern, you morons. One of the best characters out there. All right.
Sorry. Yeah, no, I totally get it. You know what's weird about that Hulk movie though is it's kind of still in the MCU, right? Because he ends up going to Brazil at the end of that movie, and that's where the Edward Norton one picks up. So it's like sort of connected in a weird way, and nobody ever talks about that anymore.
See, that's the thing that the current generation doesn't get is they'll complain about like, oh, I didn't like Suicide Squad or something. Like, you don't remember what it was like when we had to live through every superhero movie being a colossal disappointment. Now you guys get one that's just okay, and you're like, that's the worst thing I've ever seen. Like, yeah, go back and watch Daredevil, you guys. Okay.
Oh man,
go back and watch the Corman Fantastic Four and tell me that you guys have bad superhero movies. Jesus.
Oh Christ, I forgot about the Fantastic Four movies. There's some I've just memory hold.
Yeah.
Oh my gosh. What was I gonna say? With the inheritance thing, right? I'm hoping, like, the one good thing I think about there being 8 billion streaming services is that I feel like everybody thinks they need to have their version of X, right? So I'm hoping that like maybe Disney will be like, Netflix has got this Witcher thing, like we can maybe make Aragon work, and like everybody's trying to like compete for the same like slot, which is not good. It doesn't make sense, but it feels like it's what everybody's doing. Like I feel like in a lot of ways, like the Dune push is like, oh, we have to catch up with Star Wars, right? Feels sort of like WB's motivation there because they don't have a big space thing. And I'm hoping that's just causing everybody to try and make more genre stuff to sort of fill the same sort of receptors.
Well, Disney Plus is doing Percy Jackson, and Rick Riordan is involved in it. So I'm like, hoping Paolini will, say one day, "Hey, I got a phone call," because they did get the rights in the acquisition of Fox. So I think that would be really good. I mean, I know my kids would freaking love that, if they try something again. And there's obviously an audience for it. I think that's a lot of people that are older now. I think they would love to have that nostalgia scratched, and then also okay, you're Disney. You're not going to have the, the blood titties and shit like HBO has. That's what we called. That's what we called Game of Thrones when it first came out. Blood titties. Actually, it was True Blood. That was True Blood. We called blood titties. Never mind.
Oh god, yeah.
But,
Speaking of blood,
it's not going to be sexy time on Disney Plus. And I think that there's an audience for that. I think that it would be much more approachable for some of the younger audiences to get into somewhat epic fantasy with something like Aragon. I think it would be a great adaptation on Disney Plus if they did it right. So
yeah,
try again.
I'm hoping that all of this means just more, right? Because a lot of people are like, damn, I have to get Apple TV now if I want to see Foundation,
We're basically going to be paying for cable again when we got like 6 or 7 streaming services, right?
Well, I laughed my ass off once because somebody was like, I wish they'd package these so you could get 4 if oh, you're reinventing cable packaging.
Yes, you want cable again.
We used to have that. Nobody liked it. So, we'll see. But someone said, Lachlan says, remake The Phantom. I wish they'd make a good Shadow movie too.
Yeah, Shadow could be cool. Yeah. Looking forward to the younglings complaining that Dune stole the sandworm idea from Star Wars.
It's gonna happen.
Oh yeah, dude, I could make a whole video about, hey guys, I love Star Wars. Here's everything he took from Frank Herbert.
Yeah, I remind myself of that too whenever people get uppity about the stuff that I borrowed. I'm like, oh, there is this $1 billion property you might have heard of that's worse.
Yeah, right?
A worse offender. So it's how I comfort myself. I missed Stillians asking, have we ever seen Jenny Tartakovsky's Primal? I haven't yet. I keep meaning to because
I've had some people dropping my why you should read Conan video telling me that would be something that I like quite a bit. That's very Conan inspired.
Yeah, and I like Samurai Jack. So it's one of those things I just haven't sat down. He also says The Thing is a great example of a good movie being made into a great one.
Yeah, absolutely.
I've seen the old '60s one too, and it is not the story.
Right, and you know what? And then the thing is, and then you can live long enough to see them do a remake of The Thing, and it's terrible. That happened a few years back. So,
did you watch it? Because I didn't think it was that bad.
I watched about 30 minutes of it, and I was like, I feel like I've seen this movie before.
Yeah, I didn't feel like it had reason for being, but yeah. I mean, I appreciated the work they went through to rebuild the old Norwegian set and try to get everything to line up. I don't know that it needed to exist, but I thought it was kind of cool as a bit of fan service. But it's the CGI doesn't help, but I didn't think it was awful. Do I ever think Book of the New Sun can be adapted? That would be insane. I think it could. I think it would be very different because you can't have the subjectivity from Severian's self-report. This is the sort of thing I'm talking about, right? I know you haven't read it yet, Mike, but it's like Hadrian's story in that it's all Severian's point of view, right? And he doesn't understand what's going on. But in the same way that you can throw out internal monologues from Dune, if you just adapt what's happening in Book of the New Sun and you strip away a lot of the confusing language and stuff, and just dial it back and just tell the sword and sorcery, sword and laser, I guess, future stuff, and just do that as is, I think people would have a great time, right? And sure, you have to get the right director who's not gonna just turn it into a superhero movie and just take all the weirdness out, but I think it could be done.
Yeah, what else is apparently unfilmable like Book of the New Sun is a little thing called Dune, and apparently they've done that because not just because of the visual spectacle parts, but in that most of the stuff in that book is inner monologue. And I think we saw in '84 you can't do it that way. So you have this thing where you have these really good screenwriters who find ways to make it sound like exposition is just a normal conversation that people would have. So that's kind of what I'm more anxious to see about Dune, is about how are people who haven't read this going to understand what's going on when people have to actually say this stuff out loud? And is it going to not sound like, hey, this is like that one time we did this, and they tell a story that's just basically reading from the book, So how can they make that sound like a regular conversation?
Does it piss you off when people say things are unfilmable? Because I always get annoyed when I
With
read.
me, it was always like before technology expanded, because like I mean, guys, for years we're like Lord of the Rings is unfilmable, and Peter Jackson came up like blew us away. I mean, there was a time before. I mean, we didn't know about it at the time, but yeah, I'm sure you would have read Jurassic Park and said, "There's no way they can make this movie," right? So I mean, with me, it's always been like as technology advances, I feel like they can. Now I feel like, and I know that you agree with me on this, they've become so reliant on CGI that it's making the movies. I don't even want them adapted because, like, guys, I'll watch a movie now and one scene will have like practical effects and I'll be like, that's amazing, you know, because I'm tired of CGI crap fests. And that's why I think I've just started to check on everything that Disney is making these days, because everything is just over the top CGI. I was like, you don't even need actors anymore, you know. We're just going to CGI in the actors, you know, so like Grand Moff Tarkin.
Yeah,
So
I do have that fear that eventually we'll just be watching PlayStation cutscenes. I mean, we
yeah,
practically already are, but like, uh, even though most actors, as people, whatever, but like I don't want to just go in and watch a bunch of tennis balls that have been painted over, you know, for 3 hours.
the
I feel
breaking
like,
point for me was when I saw what Ian McKellen crying because Peter Jackson was making him act in a green room to a tennis ball. And I was like, I can't even imagine what that's like for actors. You think these guys grew up when cinema was just really getting huge, and seeing what they went through, and now they're in a room having a scene where they're not even in the same place. Him and oh God, who is it? Who
Christopher
plays
Lee.
Saruman? Christopher Lee, yeah. They're filming a scene in the same room. They're not in the same room. That had to be like mind blowing to them. But then they're realizing how much they hated doing it, you know?
Yeah,
So
I can't imagine it's easy, but it also like just isn't the same thing, right? It's one of the things I did like about The Mandalorian so much is the smaller budget forced them to feel more like it was 80s Star Wars, right?
well, I think that's
Um,
what saved the original Star Wars trilogy, is they didn't have the budget that they wanted to have, and it forced them to stick with what worked. And that's what gave it its fill.
yeah, and having those sort of like border conditions on what's possible like forces you to be more creative, right? Like people always like, oh, you should think, when people say that you should think outside the box, they like act like the box is bad. But like when you actually have those limitations, you have to get more innovative than you can be with like a blank check, right? Because if you've got a blank check, then you're just creating Coruscant on a green screen,
You
right?
guys hear
And
this? Christopher is a Benny Gesserit confirmed, because he said the box is not bad. Confirmed. Confirmed.
it's yes, but that would mean I was the Kwisatz Haderach for the
Oh.
obvious reason, Phil. Um, so that's
And that's
actually
the
how
good
I
thing about streaming services, is you can drop them after a week, or you can binge a show and then drop them after a week. So I mean, I've seen. I said that we were going to save up our free trial for Apple TV when Foundation was done, just binge it. But then we got new iPhones, and so we got
just
HBO,
came.
or I'm sorry, Apple TV free for like 6 months. So that's why
Oh,
I got to
cool.
watch Foundation. But yeah, I do usually have that plan. I think I did that with Handmaid's Tale on Hulu one time. So.
Yeah, I mean, that's the way to do it, right? And they're still getting their money, so
Or if you don't
it's
have someone nice enough to share their password with you, you know.
that's true too. Yeah,
Not that I would ever do that.
yeah, of course. I don't know what you're talking about, Your Honor. Um,
Hey, I got
yeah,
something I want to ask you about.
yeah.
You see this right here? So, good news or too little, too late? Russell T Davies, that is who did the David Tennant era, Christopher Eccleston of Doctor Who. Back when the show was still fun. And I think you and I are kind of on the same page. It's not what you guys think. It's just I think that the current writing staff have no idea what made Doctor Who work. It was fun. It was adventurous. It still had a lot of allegory in it. That isn't the problem with it. It's just that I feel like the current staff has no respect for what came before at all. They don't care about the lore of the show, and they forgot that the show is supposed to be fun. It's supposed to take place traveling through time and space, and they do neither. They sit in 2015 United States of America like all the time now, and it stopped being fun. It was like you always had those episodes like a Star Trek Next Generation where you get a little preachy at you, and you just kind of just went with it. The show never stopped being fun. It hasn't been fun in a long time. So everybody's like, oh, you just don't like because there's a woman doctor. I don't think there's anything wrong with Jodie Whittaker. I don't like Chris Chibnall, and Chris Chibnall is leaving. So I want to be like, okay, this is a light in the darkness, but my cautious optimism is still up because it is still the BBC. So what are you thinking about Russell T Davies coming back?
So the first thing, I was laughing because I thought you were about to reference the time I said like I don't like to have a bunch of like geek stuff, and I specifically said a TARDIS mug, and I forgot you had one.
Don't hate the player.
So I thought you were about to get me for having said that. But I do worry that it's maybe a little too late, because if you've been keeping up with it anyway, because they
I
did
know
that
about
whole
the Timeless Child.
you know about the Timeless Child thing.
Kerfuffle. Let's just call it that, kerfuffle.
That made me so angry. Not for any of the usual reasons.
That was back when, if there were any original Doctor Who fans left, let's just see how we could piss them off too. That's what that was.
It's just to sublimate the entire history of the show to like reduce everything that's ever happened and everybody who's ever worked on it, right? All the way back to Waris Hussein and Verity Lambert, right? And just say like, no, William Hartnell was not the original Doctor. That character they conceived is not the character, right? It's just a phase, right? That was so upsetting to me. Because I think the world of Lambert and Hussein for managing to get this incredibly janky program to work in the 60s when they had limited film and limited takes with an actor who was starting to lose his mind, right? If you've ever seen the movie about them starting the show, it's great.
Argus Filch as William Hartnell. Yeah, it was really good.
Yeah, it's really good. And the fact that they managed to get it to work just at all, is at that time too, right? Because it wasn't easy, like all the like practical limitations that they had. It hurt my feelings. Like I was just professionally and personally offended that they would just rewrite the entire show's history that way. And like I know that the whole Time War thing kind of rewrote the whole show's history, but it wasn't the same way, right? And I don't know how you fix it without getting rid of that, which they could very well do, right? People have this sense that like everything needs to have a very precise canon now, which I always think is weird, because like canon, and I've said this a couple of times, but like canon matters if there's like an underlying metaphysical truth that you're trying to figure out. Like we get the word canon from like biblical debates in the 1st and 2nd century, right? Like, oh, is this book heresy or not? Like that's when it really matters. But like Luke doesn't exist, right? The Doctor doesn't exist. And so like if they need to be like, this doesn't work anymore, right? And rebuild the show a little bit, they can, but I think a lot of people will, there's a sense that that'll confuse people, and I don't think that it will. I think if they just did something like that and said, look, we're gonna, do some sort of weird, 60th anniversary Time War 2 Electric Boogaloo reset thing, and like suddenly like, we're somehow back with Paul McGann or something, right? Which would be awesome because he's my favorite Doctor. But like if they did something like that and just like, oh, that was all like a parallel sort of reality and like things have shifted around in such a way that didn't happen anymore, then I could see it working. But if they're going to try and carry that thing forward, like I think that's a pretty mortal wound for me. Just sort of, oh no, the Doctor wasn't just some random dropout who ran away from home. He was literally the most important figure in the universe's history, and all of creation revolves around him. I just don't like that. So I'm hopeful, because getting Russell back feels like a very conscious bit of course correction.
I want to think that. I want to think that. What I liked about when Davies was a showrunner is at least he respected the show's history. I mean, when you saw that, I can't remember what episode it was or whatever, but when you saw the episode where the Cybermen and the Daleks are basically start wanting to fight each other over who's more superior, and I was like, okay, he's not afraid of these legacy characters. The new writing staff seems like they want anything that made that show, even as far as like down to the damn music and the logo. They're like, okay, we got to change everything about this. And Murray Gold, I'm sorry, his presence is greatly missed on that show because the music that he did was phenomenal.
He's so good.
The show right now feels like if the CW got the rights to the TARDIS, and they made a show where the TARDIS is in the background. That's what it doesn't. Nothing about this feels like Doctor Who.
It feels like. Did you watch Community?
I did not.
Okay, there's a Doctor Who parody in it called Inspector Spacetime.
It was probably better than this, right?
But there's an episode where Chevy Chase's character ends up in a focus group for the American version of it, and there's a little like post-credits bump of the American version, and it just feels like what you would think like the CW version of Doctor Who would feel like. It feels exactly like that. Like it doesn't. I've kept up with it. I haven't watched every single episode, but I've kept up with what's going on.
I almost just kind of hope this is just like a soft reboot. They just they don't reference anything that's happened, and they just kind of soft reboot, just start over. That's
probably what they'll do, because they won't do any sort of like hard fix to like stop, really persnickety nerds like me.
So don't even do a regeneration scene. Just start over, and whoever the new Doctor is, just the episode starts and you've got the new Doctor.
Yeah, that would be the best, right? If they just pulled the 2005. Yep. But I think the first thing Russell's doing is the 60th anniversary special, right?
Yeah, and I've already Eccleston and David Tennant have already basically confirmed that they're in. So I don't know about Matt
have they? That's awesome.
Yeah.
I would love to see Eccleston again.
Yeah. And I love 11, so I'd love to see Matt Smith back too. So.
Yeah, so do I. 11's kind of my guy of the ones who are on TV, because like I said, Paul McGann is my favorite, but that's because I got real into the radio plays, which I adore.
I remember I was like, when Tennant was leaving, I was like, I don't even know if I want to watch anymore now. And then like the first episode, I was like in love with Matt Smith. And then when Matt Smith left, I don't even want to watch anymore. And Capaldi took a little longer to grow on me, but yeah, I was very. That's my wife's favorite is Capaldi. So
I love him too.
I was sad to see him go too. So I do hope that they go younger. I don't know. I feel like I don't know.
Well,
maybe they'll finally get a ginger.
It's time. Originally, back in like the 90s, like before the TV movie.
Here we go. Dream Doctor castings. Here we go.
Oh no. There were a lot of books, right? And the canon got like really, really loose and choppy because they didn't ever think it was coming back. And like there was some stuff they did where like it was getting pretty like adult too. Like it was it was going in weird places, like weirder than Star Wars got. Like with the extreme edges of the EU, and there were stories where like the last Doctor was a redhead, and he was also Merlin, because there were some old episodes hinting at like, oh, the Doctor was actually Merlin, and there was a bunch of other stuff going on. So it had happened before, and I thought they were gonna maybe homage that when they did 13, but they of course did not.
A lot of people said that he likes to recycle a lot of his actors, so it's probably going to be someone that he's worked with since he left Doctor Who. And I was looking at that show that he's doing right now called It's a Sin, I think. And I looked at the cast and I was like, I see Neil Patrick Harris, and I don't think they'd ever cast an American to play the Doctor, but I would say I would be okay with Dr. Doogie, not going to lie.
I would be too. I love Neil Patrick Harris. I'm excited about him in Matrix 4. I'm as what I guess is sort of the 2020 therapy version of an agent, but he's always a delight. So what do you think about that?
About Matrix 4?
Yeah,
it feels like one of those things where I say, this is a movie no one asked for, but here's the thing. I thought Matrix Reloaded not as bad as the reputation it has. I thought there was a lot of good ideas in there. Yeah, I thought like the weird dance scene, but again, they didn't ruin the movie. I thought it had some of the best action scenes in the whole series. I mean, there was like a 20-minute stretch in that movie where you just hold your breath because the action is just next level. It's just awesome. And I go back and I watch it now, and I'm like, I like Matrix a lot. I find nothing redeeming about Revolutions. Nothing at all about it. Nothing. So I'm hoping that this can be like Rocky Balboa was to Rocky V, and that, okay, it makes it easier to accept now. That's my hope for it. I really hope they're not doing like the Neo wasn't actually the one. It's actually this person. I'm hoping they're not doing that Hollywood seems to love doing right now. Look at Ray. Look at what Terminator, what actually John Connor was actually this person. I hope they stop doing stuff like that. So if it's just, hey, we're doing this to write a better ending to that series, I'm on board for it. But if it is just a pass the torch to try to keep a franchise going, whatever.
I'm hoping it's a bit of both, because whatever else is true, the Wachowskis they're not hacks. They've had some misses, but they've been pretty.
Jupiter Ascending much?
Jupiter Ascending is not good, but they believed in what they were doing, right? And that movie does not feel focused, like tested in any particular way, right?
That movie felt like they were trying to. If you had a trilogy of books and they said, "Here, make this a 2-hour movie," because there was lots of stuff about I love, like the lizard people and stuff. I thought that was really, really wicked.
The art direction is great.
If they would have actually made a full story of this, I could have been interested. But this really felt like, hey, we're cramming 3 books into one movie. That's what it felt like to me. And I don't know what they were thinking of making Eddie Redmayne talk like that.
I think he got a Razzie for that the same year he got his Oscar for being.
Yeah, exactly. How do you get a Razzie and an Oscar in the same year?
It's if anybody could do it,
I'd love to see him as the Doctor.
He'd be great.
Newt Scamander is basically the Doctor. He's the TARDIS. Instead of a TARDIS, he has a briefcase. He's basically the Doctor. Yeah.
Yeah. He's, I guess, probably a little, he's moved on, right? Like I was telling you, I've always wanted Alexander Siddig to do it.
I didn't want that until you said it.
But I
love Deep Space Nine. So shit.
I was
watching Foundation. I was like, who is this guy? I know his eyes. I've seen his eyes a billion. Why can't I think of what this guy is? And when I finally looked up, I was like, oh, duh, because I watched 7 years of Deep Space Nine and I love Dr. Bashir.
Yeah. He's in Kingdom of Heaven. When he got cast as Doran Martell in Game of Thrones, I'd wanted him to be Oberyn early on. So I was like doing the Leo DiCaprio.
Yeah. But then you start talking about what they did in Dorne on that TV
show.
It just makes you mad. Yeah.
I will weep. Because it's
because he's a great casting as that character as well. So
and I like I don't like Feast for Crows that much. I just the way he split those books bugs me.
Yeah, no,
I loved the Dorne stuff in Feast for Crows, which is weird because like not that much happens. But like even the scene where he's just sitting there, like watching the fruit fall down from the trees and plotting, I'm like, this is the good stuff, and I don't know why.
And in the book timeline, you guys, where it stops, he's still very much a player in that series, very much a contender. So,
man, that's the thing, right? Like they're wrapping up the show, and they're like, "Oh, and we only have 6 episodes because we're running out of story." And I'm like, "You didn't have to." There was a lot more.
HBO's dumb. They should have said, "Okay, you guys want to leave? Fine. We're going to get new showrunners and keep printing money for the next, 6, 7 years." Even George R. R. Martin wanted them to keep going. So, yeah.
Yeah, I get they wanted to move on to Star Wars, but I think that
how'd that work out for you guys?
Yeah, that was made me laugh. Let's see. I missed a couple things here in the chat. If they adapted Sun Eater, would I rather be a cartoon or a movie? I personally would kind of like it to be like a classic hand-drawn thing, but they're never going to do that. It's just impossible. I just think it would look really cool. I don't like a lot of the like modern CGI animation or computer assisted animation anyway. It is too artless. Like it just doesn't have the same character. But in like a perfect world where I was emperor and could so order it, like if I could just command that there would be, like a mid-90s like Ghost in the Shell sort of, looking animation, that would be amazing. But it'll never happen.
Stillion's asking about your Alita box set, what your thoughts are on Alita.
I haven't read all of it yet. It's been one of those things. I love it though. I got into it right after the movie came out, which I thought was really good. Because I actually saw that first, but obviously the pacing in the manga is a lot better. But I've been enjoying it. I need to get back to it. I got through like the first 2, and then I think when did I stop? I think it was because I had to start Kingdoms of Death, and whenever I just stopped reading for like 6 months at a time. But it's sort of it's not exactly cyberpunk. It's sort of but it's got a little bit of that energy. It's fun.
I have Akira. That's close, right? I haven't read it yet, but yeah.
I do too. I think you would love that one though.
I wanted to fit that in sci-fi September, but I had too many other things to read. So But yeah, I'll definitely get. I've only got the first 2 though, so that's the downside. It's like it's great when people want to gift you something, but when they send you like 1 and 2 of 6, it's like, well, now I haven't committed to buying the rest of them. Damn it! So
right, yeah, that's not
collector problems.
That's sort of a poisoned gift, right? It's also a burden, yeah. But it's awesome. That's one of my favorite sort of cyberpunk things. Just period. Most of my favorite cyberpunk stuff is Japanese.
Oh, check this out. What Dennis says: the TARDIS once exploded. Doctor rebooted the universe. Maybe when that was done, the Doctor left too large an imprint on remake. Maybe she will need to re-explode the universe and reboot it again.
I'm pretty sure that what they'll do is have the 60th anniversary be some sort of weird capstone,
unless they're doubling down.
Unless they double down, yeah, which is the question, right? Because I haven't seen much from Russell T Davies since he left Doctor Who. I haven't like followed him. I don't know if he's the same person anymore, right? Like people like get different they go through different creative phases.
Sure.
But if their selection of him is because they're like the BBC quietly is like, oh crap, we really let this get out.
Yeah, we've got the lowest ratings in like 60 years. Maybe we should do something. Yeah.
Like they must know it's a problem, right? Because they've had to cut the episode order down, right? Like I think
I say it's a point where it's like, okay, look, you can stand your ground, but I gotta believe when these media conglomerates, when they start losing money, that's when they're like, okay, well, we've gotten our social message out there. Let's get back to making sure that we don't lose our audience. Yeah,
so I think so too, right? Because like people thought that they were going to like course correct The Last Jedi, right? They can never do that because whether or not you like The Last Jedi, like, I'm not a big fan. I know you're not either, but I know some people like it. Some people like it, whatever. Like I accidentally once said that I hated it within earshot of Claudia Gray. And that was really, really uncomfortable, and I felt terrible because like some people really like it, but they lost a lot of money, right? Like it did not make as much as I thought it was going to make. They could never turn around and say we're not doing this movie because then they lose all the journalists who liked it. Every journalist liked it, right? So they can never do that. They have to sort of institutionally double down to a certain degree, and. I mean, the BBC's got to know, right? Like they like the first episode with Chibnall had like the highest ratings in several years, but then it immediately dropped off, right? And they had to like run the seasons every other year. Like they used to not have to do that, right? There'd be like gap years. I'd assume because they're just not. But like I'm sure they lost a lot of people, right? For whatever reason, right? I think they've made it very clear that the quality of the writing suffered, right? Whatever people may think of, other reasons, right? They just lost a lot of people, and so they've got to know, right? They got to know that they have a problem, and so I just don't know. I would love to have my favorite show back, because I was like. Moffat was losing me in his last couple of years too, because I had this ongoing argument with my friend who was a big Russell T Davies guy, and I thought Moffat was better, like early on, right? I was like, no, he's just doing like a multi-season thing. He's going to stick the landing.
Yeah, no, I like that. I like the story arcs over the course of the full season, but yeah, he did just some stuff. It was like even in Matt Smith's years and some stuff. I was like, I don't know what this is.
I'm still unclear on like what the silence was. Like I know like, but there's like literally in Matt Smith's last episode, there's like one line of dialogue that explains where the villains from seasons 5 and 6 came from. They're like, oh yeah, part of the Church of the Silence just went back in time and caused trouble. I'm like, oh okay, like it's all clicking together now. But like that's one line of dialogue, right? It's not as cohesive, and he didn't stick the landing, right? Like there's just a lot of loose threads from Moffat's stuff. And so now when they said, oh, Russell's coming back, I was like, yes. And my friend was like, you lose. Our long-standing argument, like, okay, William, yeah, you can have this one.
Yeah, so it's really just going to depend on, like I said, if there's like, okay, look, we got to fix the hemorrhaging ratings, or we're just going to double down on what we've already done. So I think it's really you're going to be able to tell right away. I think a lot's going to be told from that first, 3 or 4 episodes of whatever happens next. So I don't know.
Anthony Hopkins is the Doctor. That would be awesome.
I saw someone say Jason Statham, and I was like, shit, that'd be a different take. I'd be for it.
Yeah, bring back the kung fu from the 70s.
Doctor that can really kick some ass. Sure.
I would be here for it.
I think Eddie Izzard was my like really crazy one for a while. I thought he'd do it really well.
He would be fun. I'm trying to think who else I always had on the list, and I just saw Scott saying he zoned out on the Doctor Who, so we've lost Scott again.
Oh, Scotty too hottie.
Um,
You'll watch Doctor Who one day and you'll be like, oh, this is really great. So.
no, or better, Scott, you can listen to some of the audio plays because I know you're an audiobook guy. So those are, I think, because they don't have the TV budget, like they can really go all out. So the audio stuff's way more ambitious. They'll do like literally like 20 episode, and the episodes early on were like 2-3 hours long. Like the whole plays were these huge like feature length things, and they do a story arc over like that would take like 50 hours to resolve, right? And it's all like the original actors too.
Hey, I've drank like 3 of these, so I'm going to use a bathroom break. But hey, you can answer Ren's question. Any book recommendations from Chris? Something not that well known that is epic fantasy.
Epic fantasy. Yeah, I can do that. And we'll cover Mike while he leaves. So one of the ones I recommend a lot on the channel that you may not have heard me talk about before is my friend DJ Butler has a series called The Witchy War. The first book is Witchy Eye. And instead of building a secondary world, doing like, oh, here's Middle Earth or whatever, what Dave did, and I know other folks have done this, but Dave does it really, really well, is he took America circa 1800 and turned it into a fantasy empire. So it's not like Harry Turtledove where there's like a point in history where things just split off. It's just that the world of Dave's books is a lot like ours, but has always been sort of parallel to it, right? So in his universe, magic is real, and so you'll see historical figures like Oliver Cromwell became an immortal undead necromancer and ruled England with an iron fist for a while, and apparently is still out there somewhere. Or like Napoleon is taking over Europe, but as he considered doing in real life, he converted to Islam, and like things are of quite different, right? And there was no Reformation, so like church history is very, very different, and all these things are different. And the books are about the secret daughter of the Empress of America, and the Empress was just murdered. And Sarah is told, oh, actually, you're the heir to the throne, and your uncle is trying to kill you. And so she has to, do the sort of typical fantasy thing and muster a rebellion, right, and claim her birthright and defeat her uncle and all these things. And it's complete. The first trilogy is complete. He's working on book 5 now. I love them. I think Dave is one of the best world builders going. I really just the amount of work that he puts into his world building is amazing. He taught himself Ojibwe, which is Native American language, so that he could do the Native American characters justice and to really understand their stories and myths and culture as they would, right? Because when you translate things, you lose stuff. And like that is a level of dedication that like I don't have. Like I have not taught myself another language to write books. So I really like those. Another writer, we're talking about Tim Powers a little bit earlier, may or may not have inspired. Sorry, Mike is back as I'm shilling Tim Powers again. No, I should have opened with that.
Like I said, you're like Paul Heyman for Brock Lesnar when it comes to Tim Powers. You are the ultimate hype man.
He's just so good. Like by no means is Tim. Like, it's weird shilling for writers who are bigger than me because like he's won several World Fantasy Awards. So it's always weird when I'm like, oh, people you should really read are like my seniors. But Tim doesn't do like your classical epic fantasy either, but he does a lot of like what he called weird fiction, which is sort of in the way that like Stephen King does. Like I was saying, like I think they're pretty comparable in terms of the kinds of stories they write. And Tim's got I just read a book of his called Declare, which is like part Cold War spy thriller and part like Indiana Jones fantasy quest involving Noah's Ark and genies and the Soviets trying to use genies who may or may not be fallen angels from before the flood to wage war on the free world. And it's just really, really cool. And Tim's another one who does all this crazy research. I love his stuff. But if you want like a more sort of classic epic fantasy, I'm a big Guy Gavriel Kay fan. I really love. Yeah, I think you'd like him. He's got really a big Tolkien feel, but like a more historically grounded sort of Tolkien feel, because he will go into, instead of doing like your classic sort of, Franco-English, medieval kingdom, he'll do like a lot of Renaissance Italy stuff. Or my favorite book of his is called Sailing to Sarantium, which is a Byzantine Empire thing. And I'm a big, Roman Empire, Byzantine Empire guy. So it's really cool because he'll take a series of events from history and then move them to his own fantasy world so he can change the ending, right? And that's just fun for me because I can see, like, oh, it's Justinian, but like you don't need to know any of that to enjoy it. So it's cool. Like if you want to read a book about chariot races and like pagan human sacrifice cults and the Roman Empire, Sailing to Sarantium is awesome.
That sounds wild. Any thoughts on Witcher season 2? And it was just renewed for season 3. I didn't know that, but I think people are a lot harder on Witcher than they probably should have been. I think it's another one of those things, like I said, complaining about superhero movies, and you don't remember how bad they used to be. Guys, go back and watch Legend of the Seeker. Go back and watch Shannara and tell me that Witcher was a bad show. I think the problem with Witcher was that Netflix sank some money into it, and they probably just didn't have the right people making sure the budget was spent in the right places. If you just the trailers alone, to me, for season 2 look like, okay, they've fixed a lot of that problem. I think that the cast was pretty good. I'm excited to see where it goes, even though I did. This is still going to be based off of a book that I read, Blood of Elves, but now season 3 will be based off of the book that made me stop. I didn't DNF the series. I just said, I'm not enjoying this that much. I'm going to take a break so I don't hate read it or whatever. But I'm excited about it. Look, no matter how you guys feel about it, that show was a big hit for Netflix. Massive numbers, more than Mandalorian. It had a bigger audience than Mandalorian, which we know how big a hit that was. So I think it's they've got their Game of Thrones, and we're waiting to see if Amazon has theirs with Wheel of Time. We're waiting to see. So I'm not saying it'll ever be that big, but I'm saying that audience is going to be huge for Witcher season 2. So I think that they need to stick a really big landing on that, and I have a big sophomore slump. How do you feel about Witcher?
I also thought people were too hard on it. I don't know why people thought the time skipping was confusing. I didn't.
They never watched Tarantino movies.
I guess, I thought it was pretty clear when we saw King Foltest as a kid in the painting, and then like immediately like scene cut to him and his sister as kids. I'm like, oh, this is in the past. Okay. Like I thought it was fine. Obviously I like Henry Cavill a lot. I'll watch basically anything he's in. I think he's awesome. And I love that he obviously, because he's such a freaking nerd, right? Like he cares.
Dude, he's a nerd who plays like video games and shit. And he's like serious about it. Like he made a video of him like building a gaming computer. I was like, dude, he's basically the more handsome and successful version of me.
Yeah, exactly, right? And like he's always, posting on Instagram, reading Sanderson books or things, right? And it's like, okay, come on, Henry, like, when's it gonna be my turn? I got my fingers crossed. But like he sat down in an interview, right, and he was like showing like a couple stills from season 2, and he's like, I know that you might not understand this, interviewer, but I know someone watching is gonna understand. This looks like a thing from Warhammer 40K.
And so you're a fake nerd. He's actually a nerd.
Yeah. Oh yeah, no, like hardcore. Which I don't know that much about Warhammer, but like he feels like he's one of us in a way that most actors, when they're like, I too am reading my comic book. I'm like, okay. Everyone's like, oh, I was reading Dune and I was really struck by, and then they go on to describe something that's the book's not like at all. Like, okay, sit down, Rebecca Ferguson or whoever. I'm just picking an actor. I can't remember. I know Timothy read the book too, and he was talking about it. No, I don't know. I like the first season. The one thing I don't like, just to put some variance in here, is why are all the sword fights with the sword in reverse grip? I hate that. Nobody fights that way. That's not a thing. It makes swords unusable. I know it looks cool, but it's dumb.
Now I hope they have leather armor in season 2 and get you really heated.
Oh my god. I watched this Jesus show, The Chosen, a couple weeks ago. Because I watched a couple of clips, and the guy playing Jesus was really good, which is like important. And all the Romans are wearing leather armor, and it was pissing me off. Like every time one of them showed up, I'm like, that the sword's on the wrong side, the helmet shouldn't have a crest, the centurion's crest is wrong, and all of this is making me mad because HBO's Rome spoiled me, which there are a couple things that are off, but at least the Centurion's damn helmet is right. That is a Centurion helmet. They go this way. I
This
don't
makes
know
me
this
think
one.
me and Madison were reading Empire of Silence at the same time, and she messaged me on Discord and said, I got a question. Doesn't it seem kind of weird that people are wearing porcelain armor? That doesn't make a lot of sense. And I was just thinking, he's just probably just being like, look, it's not leather, damn it.
So most of the armor, it's porcelain colored. I think there might be an odd sentence or somewhere that doesn't specify that, but it's mostly ceramic. So porcelain is not exactly a ceramic, but most of the armor is ceramic, which a lot of bulletproof armor today is ceramic.
Oh,
Um,
good.
and it's because ceramic, it'll break, but it'll diffuse impacts really effectively.
See,
And you
you
can
knew where he
make
was
it very
going with it.
cheaply.
All right.
So, and it's also very, very heat resistant, right? So most of the stuff that people are shooting in Hadrian's day is plasma, right? So it's really good at blocking, 5,000 degree bolts of plasma, right? But if you were to shoot it with a bullet, it would probably shatter.
Hey,
Um,
Stillion wants to know what's your favorite Ray Bradbury book.
um,
This is a fun conversation. And I love Something Wicked, but I
so I
also
have
love
never
Martian
read
Chronicles.
Something Wicked, and I need to read more. I know it's a basic bitch answer, but I really like Fahrenheit
Yeah.
451,
I mean,
and I feel like of
it's the best for a reason.
all the dystopian books, I feel like it's more apropos, right? Because people talk about, and he would like leave talks, right? If he was giving a lecture and the person before said it's about censorship, because it's not about censorship, right? It's about TV being bad for people, right? And the big thing, right, is just the general sense of apathy, like nobody cares to read, right?
Mm.
And that feels more apropos to the dystopian world that we live in than 1984 even does, right? Like just this sort of general malaise that most people feel about learning, right, or about culture in general feels more apropos than 1984 or Brave New World or really any of the others. And so I feel a very strong attachment to that book. I also really love, it's not a book, but I love There Will Come Soft Rains. His sort of short story, sort of semi-poem about nuclear holocaust.
Yeah, he was brilliant. I'm also old enough to remember when Fahrenheit 451 was just speculative fiction, not me.
Yeah. Gosh. But I will say I've tried when I was doing all these short story books for Bain. I've tried for years to get his estate to let me print like obscure stuff that he's done. He's so expensive. I've
Really?
reprinted some Asimov stuff. I've reprinted Clark and Heinlein. They just like the Bradbury people like will not. It's just so hard. And it was like this has never been reprinted. It was written in the 50s. Let me like the first time, please. And they're like, no. It's been a
How much
struggle.
money you got on you? Yeah.
Yeah, like not that much. That's what I had for the whole book. Thank you. And
How
I
did you
missed
come
from
up with how did you come up with the language for Sun Eater? I think that's a good question.
the like the Cielson language.
I don't know. Lupa just asked,
Um,
how did you come up with the languages?
so what with the ones that aren't Cielson, I mostly wing it. I will look at because like I know with Judean that like it's sort of derived from Arabic and Italian slash Spanish and Greek, right? Because the idea basically is all the people who were sort of in the Mediterranean world had to get together and get on the same ships when Earth was on the outs, shall we say. And so the language sort of fused in much the same way that like Belter in The Expanse is made up of a lot of languages sort of smushed together. We call that an argo. Judean is an argo, right? So I will look at the words for fire in all of those languages, and then I'll pick whichever one I think sounds coolest, right?
Oh,
And
okay.
then I'll change the spelling a little bit. And so those languages I really, really fudge. Cielson has an actual grammar and like words that mean things, and I try to make semantic connections between words and stuff. So I'll like actually make sure that words for like sleep and dream are in some way related, right? Which they aren't necessarily in like not all conceptually related words sound similar, right? But you want some linkages like that. So I'll actually do that. The nouns are very Latin. The verbs are very Japanese, which are the two languages I know any of besides English. I'm functionally a monoglot, but I will I'll work with those and sort of and grow from there. But I do it on a sentence by sentence basis. I put an @ sign on every line of dialogue that I want to translate, and then when I'm done writing, I'll go back through and do it all at once. Because if I have to stop what I'm doing to translate a line of dialogue, like the sort of track changing in my brain will just keep me from writing for the next forever. So that's how I do it. As far as like the Greek and Roman stuff for the Galactic Standard, I didn't want to actually, because what they're speaking actually, because the book is a translation, right? Which is a trick that Gene Wolfe uses, a trick Neil Stephenson uses. It's just a fun sort of like gimmick, right?
How dare you rip that off?
Yeah, I just credit where it's due, right? But rather than do like an actual trying to make a whole language for that and like give like military ranks names that you don't recognize, in translating they try to sort of Romanize it, because the Greek and the Latin words sound old to you and me in a way that all the formal Galstani would sound old to Hadrian, right? So it's sort of to simulate the feel rather than be a literal translation, because the actual language they're speaking is also an argot of like English and Hindi mostly is sort of supposed to be the idea. So actually in my head, when they're referring to people wearing togas, it's probably more like the Indian pashtush, right? The shawl, right? But because it's being translated in such a way, a lot of this stuff is probably lost in translation, right? So maybe when I do one of these Sun Eater standalones, I'll throw everyone for a loop and actually have the translator go a different way with things. Because some of the stuff, obviously, like, they will style stuff to look more Roman, because they're trying to ape like every great human civilization. And the Solons are trying to be the successor to every empire. In the same way that like they're so the Romans had an eagle, right? And one of the reasons everybody's got an eagle for a symbol is because they're kind of trying to ape the Roman legacy. That's one of the reasons we have an eagle in America. But the Byzantines had a two-headed eagle, right? Because they were Rome too. And you can find Russian imperial symbols that have three-headed eagles because they were Rome 3. And so it just keeps going. And so everyone would kind of fight over like who's the legitimate Roman claimant, right? Like the Ottomans would claim that they were Rome, right? Because they took over the Byzantine Empire, right? And at the same time, you have the British sort of doing all of their sort of Victorian buildings that looked very Roman, and everybody was trying to like put on the crown, right? And the Solons are just putting on every single crown they can get. So, I kind of want to like play with a lot of those different cultural reference. And
you guys hear what he just said there? I get asked all the time, Mike, do you ever have a plan on writing your own book? No, because my brain does not work like this. What he's doing right now, I would never even consider stuff. I'd just be like, you know what? Chinese is the one language that has prevailed over all these years, so that's what we're going to use.
Yeah, you can do that too. I just wanted to mess with people. Yeah, that's fun. I did want to mention Casillian here was saying Eternal Champion is one of his favorite bands. Have you listened to them?
It's the first I've heard of them.
Because you would love them. I like them too. They do a lot of like they're obviously named after Elric, right? The Moorcock books, but they've got a lot of like Howard and Lovecraft stuff in their songs too. They've only got the 2 albums, but I'll send it to you after this because they are awesome.
I mean, I still want to read Elric. That's one that's always been on my radar, but I've just never quite get around. But they're actually doing these nice new collections here starting this fall. They're going to do 3 volumes. Kind of, I've always been like, it's kind of like, I've been told that it's like Robert E. Howard in that you don't have to read them in order. The story just short stories. You can just read them however you want. But I'm so much of a stickler. I'm like, well, I would like some kind of chronological order. It's just the kind of reader that I am. So I believe that these are doing that. So that's very exciting. So have you read Elric at all?
So I haven't. I've been put off because Moorcock wrote this essay called Epic Pooh, as in
where he just trashed Tolkien?
Yeah, and I have a very powerful like protect Tolkien at all costs reflex.
Yeah.
So that's put me off for a really long time. Whenever people try to make it's more like Conan comparison, I'm like, okay, I really probably should read it. And especially because like, all the like old Michael Whelan Daw stuff, those covers, I feel like not reading them is like betraying the home team. Um, so I do want to get around to it eventually, but it put me off for a really long time.
Yeah, same here. The whole reason I haven't read what Philip Pullman, his Dark Materials, is because the whole time is basically like saying it was like a middle finger to C.S. Lewis, and I'm like, well, I love C.S. Lewis, kiss my dick,
Yeah, exactly. I don't want to. I
But
just
I
don't.
try to do that thing, like I say, separate the art from the author. So.
Yeah, I try to too. I just haven't had a chance. My turn to take a quick break, if you don't mind. Someone here was asking, I missed it. Mike, what's your favorite sci-fi standalone book?
My favorite sci-fi standalone. Well, a lot of them are. Oh, man, that's good. That's good because I think of most of them as series. I haven't read a lot of standalones. Maybe Childhood's End. I know I just read it, but that's one that's kind of just stuck in my head here. Arthur C. Clarke, and it's one of those I go back now and I look at and say I can see where a lot of those tropes that are used in science fiction now. I can see this is kind of where they got the influence on. If I didn't say that, I'd probably say Martian Chronicles, Ray Bradbury. I like obviously Bradbury quite a bit, but I like that one because it just goes to show that I think during the time period, you can see obviously the nuclear threat was obviously where everyone's mind was on at the time. Like we didn't think that we'd even make it to the turn of the century because of everybody pointing nukes at one another. It wasn't a matter of if, it was a matter of when someone was going to push the button, and then everyone was going to mutually assured destruction, press the button in response, and we were just going to live in a wasteland. So you can see it very big in those books, whereas Childhood's End that stops, and with the Martian Chronicles it doesn't stop, and basically some of those things even kind of chase us to Mars. So two very, very good standalone books, I think. I find myself more now where it seems like I'll start a series, but I only read book one, like Ender's Game. I've only read book one, love it to death, but I haven't read anything past that. Or I don't know. I love Red Rising as a series and things like that, but I don't know. I don't know. I haven't really read as much sci-fi as I would like to. I do admit that. So that was one of the reasons I moved Christopher's stuff up, is because I was like, I need to get more science fiction on the channel. So he's sitting there like, oh, it's sci fantasy. And I'm like, shut up. I've been hearing that about Dune my whole life. And I'm like, it's got interstellar travel and spaceships. I'm calling it science fiction. So same thing here. This brings me to a question, Christopher. I recorded my review of Ender's Game today, and I'm just curious if you've read Ender's Game. It'd be hard for me to imagine that you haven't.
Yeah, I have. I've just read the first one though. My understanding was that the series was going to get into a lot of the same territory I wanted to get into. Asking some of the same questions maybe, and so I stopped. But I love the first one.
So
that's not true. I read Ender in Exile for some reason. I jumped and read one of the like.
Was that like book 5 or something?
No, it's right after Ender's Game chronologically, but he wrote
it. Released it later. Okay, yeah.
10 years ago. Yeah. So I did read that, but I love it. I want to go and read all of it again. One of my friends, Kyle, has been on my case to read the rest of the series, and keep telling him, it's going to be a few years, right? Like same with the Red Rising thing. I've just been putting it off.
I've heard so many divisive things about those Ender sequels, and it's one person really scared me off with the saying, oh, it's the sequels are so bad that it'll taint the first one for you. I'm like, well, fuck, I don't want that. I think what that is kind of like Dune, is that people realize when they read the Dune sequels that the original Dune isn't a good representation for where the series ends up going, So I think it's something more like that. It just people didn't get what they wanted with the Ender sequels, maybe.
I think that's true too, because my understanding was he wrote Speaker first. Really? And if I remember the story right now, I might be getting this wrong, but
I know Ender's Game was a short story originally in a magazine, and then he evolved into a novel later. But okay, that's interesting.
Yeah, or maybe he because the way I remember it, and I might be wrong, is that he had to go and backfill and write Ender's Game to justify Speakers being published. And my understanding is that Speaker is awesome, basically, like no matter who you ask, and that it's Xenocide and Children of the Mind that people are more split on. So
people told me the books are just really depressing. I'm like, well, I read grimdark, so I'm okay with depressing, but
Yeah, but I think
Um,
the Dune thing's probably a good comp, right? Because people read Dune, and whatever Frank Herbert may say, right? Like the only things to really indicate that Paul isn't the like unvarnished good guy are the epigrams. If you like, for whatever reason, glaze over the epigrams, like you don't have the deeper historical context at all, right? And then you can just read it as a simple hero story. And then Messiah really gives people whiplash, I think, because of that. And I think I think he loses a lot of readers throughout the series because of that. Just getting up through children. Now, children's awesome, and you know how I feel about God Emperor. I think it's almost as good as the
and then
first one.
stop right there.
And then then stop right there. Honored Matres are weird. I just don't. I just don't. Don't go for it. But I get similar feelings. I've heard my friend growing up read like all of the Ender Shadow books too, those sort of parallel series, and he said he liked those even better.
Yeah, a lot of people tell me they like the Bean books a lot. So yeah,
So I think there's definitely like some good things to be said there. So
I'm really interested in my I think junior high levels where I really want to encourage. I'm never going to make them. I really want to encourage my kid to read Ender's Game because I think he would love this. One of those when I read it for the first time in 2017. And I was like, I think if I had read this when I was younger, I think it would have been just as impactful to the way I approach a lot of things like Dune was. So
yeah,
I think getting that early. And that's what the thing is that's one of the things that they consider right there with Art of War in business school as not required reading, but they highly recommend that you read it because it's
read
good
Ender's Game,
learning
like
about teamwork, about cooperation, about competition and things like that. So it was a very surprising to me when I saw that when I entered business school. That was one of the recommended readings.
yeah, that's kind of cool. I guess it's always weird to me to think about businessmen reading Sun Tzu or Miyamoto Musashi. I'm like,
Yeah.
are you going to be in any katana duels? Like,
So you guys having a sword fight afterward?
like I was not sold the idea of business on I was going to be sword fighting like representatives from IBM or something because like that's what it's like. I'm in like. If there's like actually corporate work is actually like Highlander and like to get a deal you have to decapitate the other person's champion, like I'm there.
I think that business dealings would be a lot more precise. What would George Lucas call those? Aggressive negotiations? Negotiations were short.
Oh man.
Moyd's here. Moyd's here. Oh, did Moyd read those books that you sent him yet?
No, I don't think
Let's
so.
shame him.
Oh
Is
no,
he was read along?
He was a good sport about it because I think like 3 people sent him the book at the same time, and he thought someone was sending him a message. Which Moyd, if you're still here, I loved the Alistair Reynolds interview you did. That was some real primo stuff.
Is Alistair Reynolds as hard to read as people say it is? Because
No.
I have Absolution Gap, and people were telling me, dude, this is even more like convoluted and dense than Malazan. I was like, all right, well, I'm going to do Gene Wolfe before I do that. But I was like, that was a scary word when I heard that.
No, it's just he's got some like really crazy like technical ideas, right? Which like so you like the hard sci-fi stuff, right? Like the
like the
stuff.
Expanse, I think is about as hard a sci-fi as I go.
Well, like Crichton's got some pretty high concept.
Crichton, Crichton.
So like sort of like he actually like will work through the ramifications of what an inertial dampener would be like if it actually existed, and it's kind of scary, right? And like think about stuff like that in a way that most writers do, and some of that's a little bit obtuse. I think what makes Reynolds difficult is a lot of his characters are just downright amoral. Like there's just some really like psychotic bad people, and it's hard sometimes to get a foothold to figure out who you're supposed to root for because they're like all kind of miserable. But if you can get past that and just like go on this weird, awful, sort of journey through these, technological sort of hellscapes, then it's great. His world building is just absolutely top tier, and it's just like weird in a way that like say Mine isn't, right? Like Mine is like, what do I just put medieval kingdoms in space and like added a couple things, right? He's like doing weird things about like nanotech viruses that like fuse people with machines, and these big creepy spaceships that have like spider robots that like it's just like crazy cool stuff. And that's always a blast to read. And it's just I like to read writers that I'm not like, and I think that Reynolds is sort of one of them. And so I really enjoy those books. I haven't read outside of his Revelation Space stuff, which I really, really should. But if you're on the fence, I'd give Revelation Space a shot. I think it's pretty cool. So I think you would like it.
I just lost the question I was going to ask you. Oh, so in your professional opinion, being a Dan Simmons reader, do you think I should struggle through Endymion, or should I just say fuck it and just go to Ilium? Because I did not care for Fall.
If you didn't like Fall, I wouldn't go to Endymion. It's more of that. And I think I honestly I don't really care for the Endymion books that much. Now, part of that's personal. I don't really buy his world building with the church and how he takes that. It just doesn't read to me like anything that a Catholic would accept. Just coming from the church in the book, like they do things with the cruciforms and stuff in very early in 3, so it's not really a spoiler. It's like no one would ever accept that. Like it's just not that's like practically satanic. Like it just wouldn't fly. Whereas I thought he did a really good job with Paul Duray, especially in Hyperion. He felt very credible. All that stuff about like Saint Tayar, right? Like Teilhard de Chardin's work is pretty like we're kind of on the fence about it, whether or not it should be like sort of tossed out or not. But it felt like a credible way to take theology, like in a sci-fi setting. So I liked that, and he felt very authentic, but the Endymion books don't. Ilium is freaking awesome, though. I have like basically nothing bad to say about it.
I told me it was Odysseus with robots, and I said, "Oh shit!"
Yeah, no. So like you've got your ancient Greeks, and then you've got this weird dystopia on Earth that's kind of like Time Machine, Eloy feeling, and there are killer robots there, and there's this crazy mining robots from like the moons of Jupiter who are just like weird, and they get it's all sort of gets dragged together in just like the weirdest way. And I'm pretty sure that the like portal battle from the end of Endgame was like just cribbed directly from the end of Ilium.
Really?
Like the whole like wizards opening doors to like everywhere. It's exactly that sort of big throwdown. It's super cool. And yeah, Odysseus killing robots with like a vibroblade is about as cool as it gets. So it's just neat. It does get a little bit weird and out there in places, but I like that too, right? So, I think it's super cool. I wish he would do more of those. He's threatened to before. So.
I read The Terror first. It's the first book I read by him, and I like that quite a bit. So
I've seen the show, and I loved it.
And again, with Fall of Hyperion, for people to understand, it's not a bad story. I admit it. It wasn't what I wanted. The way I put it out was where I said it was like, imagine if they were writing Empire Strikes Back, and they said, instead of Han, Luke, and Leia, how about we just have Lobot have fever dreams about what those characters are doing in the sequel, and then we're going to stick around the Senate the whole time.
Yeah, there was a little bit too much Senate stuff, but I feel like the back half of Fall personally really, really gets going. And your mileage may vary, but I totally get it being kind of a rocky start.
Well, off the air, I want you to explain the ending to me, because I still don't get it with the strike. So we can talk about that.
I will say too, sort of a postscript on the Reynolds thing. Dan Smith here saying Galactic North is a good entry point for him. It's sort of a short story collection set in the Revelation Space stuff. That'd be a pretty good way to like get a sense of whether or not you like the flavor, maybe in one sitting.
It's a shorter commitment than the 600-page Absolution Gap.
Yeah, I wouldn't start with Absolution Gap either. That's, I think, technically.
Is that not part of Revelation Space? Oh, I thought
it is, but I heard, I think actually in Moyd's interview, I think Reynolds was saying like you can kind of, they're kind of all standalones, but that one, it would be better if you read Revelation Space itself.
That's first. Okay. That's book. I have book 1 and 2. I haven't got the third one yet. I didn't know which one was which.
I think.
But I look at that, and I look at like the Peter F. Hamilton ones, and those are just like this. I was like, I don't know if I want to start that, because I've heard such mixed feedback on it.
Yeah, I couldn't get a foothold with those either. As nothing against Hamilton, I just don't think I was the right guy for it.
I'm more open to the doorstopper size, sci-fi books. Just after I finish Malazan, I don't want anything else that feels like a heavy commitment right now. No more humongous, massive books right now. And then when I say that, and then I'm starting Tad Williams in January before I'm done with Malazan, and fucking the third book in Memory, Sorrow, and Thorn is like one of the biggest books ever written. So
yeah, I haven't read those either. So but I have talked to Betsy Wilhelm about them at length, and the way she just glows about them. And of course, she's the editor, right? But
yeah.
Editors, I'll tell you, have books that they love, and they have books that they really don't ever want to work on. And the way that she glows about those books is just really, really strong recommendation. So
someone on the Discord asked if you've ever met Patrick Rothfuss since you worked at the same publisher.
No, I have not.
I'm sorry, you are published under the same publisher. Yeah.
No, I haven't met Rothfuss yet. I've met Tad Williams though. He's a very nice guy. It was cool. We had a sort of a DAW family dinner. I think this is 2018 Worldcon. And I was the first person there because I'm early to everything, right?
Right.
And Tad Williams comes in with his wife, and he's like, "You here for the DAW thing?" And I'm like, "Yeah." And he's like, "I haven't met you yet," right? And that was cool, right? Because most of the big name writers don't do that sort of thing. And he went around and introduced himself to all the baby writers like me, and that was super cool.
I have a story about this where when I first discovered A Song of Ice and Fire, and I was so excited because all growing up, my brother, whatever he read in fantasy or he had in his bedroom, that was my library, So I always wanted to impress him. And when I called him, very, very excited, as 17 years old, tell him I found this epic fantasy series I think he'd really, really like. And he cuts me off in mid-sentence to say, "Quit reading that Tad Williams ripoff garbage and just read Memory, Sorrow, and Thorn." I'm like, what? And that's been going for 20 something years now. Every time I talk to him, he's like, "So what are you reading?" And we'll talk about that. And I'm like, "So you still haven't read Tad Williams yet?" He's like, "Newbie," like that. So now I'm finally going to do it. And here's the thing: is like I'm terrified. What if I don't like it? He's gonna be so pissed off. So
yeah, no, I mean it's supposed to be the books that made him write Song of Ice and Fire, right?
Inspiration, yeah.
I bet you'll be fine. And again, the way Betsy talks about it, like they must be great. It's just another thing. They're so long, I just don't know.
Well, I've decided to do whereas now they publish book 3 as one book, but at the time it was so big they had to publish it as a part 1 and part 2 because it was breaking the spines on the paper, on the mass market paperbacks. And they were saying that it was either that or they had to get really cheap paper that was literally like tearing when you would turn the page. So they decided to break it into 2. But now, like the trade, I've got the trade, and it's massive. It's just ridiculous. I'm splitting that in half between March and April because I'm doing one
no
a
kidding.
month,
It's I can't imagine. I think that's like 2 to 3 times as long. I think it's like 600,000 words or something as like one of mine. And I already feel like mine are pushing too long.
Yeah. So. See, I mean, it did take me 3 weeks to read Demon Away. I'm not gonna lie.
Yeah. So it's funny, right? Because they forced a split on me, but I was already planning after the series to sort of bring it back down to like the 200,000 word mark. That's like 50 of my chapters, right? I think that's reasonable, and that way I can maybe do 2 a year, which will make everyone happy. I hope, especially if I want to do some like one-offs. Can really get through some stuff that way. So
hey, how did the launch of the limited edition thing you just did go? How'd that go?
That went really well. We've got about 120 left. So the other 380 like went in a week, which is awesome. If anybody does want to check out hardcover version of Lesser Devil and other stories, it's got 7 other of my stories in there.
Yeah, guys, don't be a sucker like Mike and buy the paperback of Lesser Devil and then like
I got you covered. I got you covered. But if you guys want to check that out,
you only got 500 and most of them are gone. That's great. That's awesome.
Yeah. He's talking about maybe, and I'm gonna put that word in all caps, maybe, doing a limited hardcover run of the main series. So we might do like deluxe editions of Empire and stuff moving forward.
Then I gotta get all those again. God, book collecting's it's a nightmare.
Yeah, I get it. It'd be cool. I got some ideas, stuff I'd like to do to sort of class it up a bit. But
I think you should call the representatives at Barnes and Noble, and when Dune is a hit, and they start putting out their things to say, if you liked Dune, check out this. You need to make sure your books are front faced on that end cap right there.
I'm hoping that the movie will have a little bit of a boost for me. We'll see.
Yeah, so I mean, if the movie's good, That's awesome. But you get to ride that sandworm's, coattails there. That's a good thing, right?
Yeah. So I'm hoping, we'll see if we can, hook them.
How's the pre-orders looking for Kingdoms of Death?
So I
Are
don't
you allowed to,
actually know. I don't get
you don't
pre-order
get this
numbers
information?
reporting in until the first week sales is done. Then I get to see them. They might not even know yet, because it may just be that the local stores have their pre-order numbers and they'll report when they sell, right? So it's always funny if you look at like the sales curves for my books, right? You've got like the first week, and then it's like, and then it's basically flat after that, And they do pretty well, but it's just like, I think maybe 20% of Demon and Wyatt's copy sold still the first week.
That's awesome.
Which, it's good. It means that I've got people who are, sticking around, which is awesome. So
Lupa asked, would you ever narrate a book? Yes, absolutely. My dream job, guys, is to work for Audible. I would even read smut novels to pay my dues before they started letting me read sci-fi and fantasy. For sure. I have a major published author who has asked me if I would be interested in doing his next series. I can't really disclose that information, but I said absolutely. It's someone most of you guys know. I'll just say that. But I would love that. I would love for Audible to give me a call, because I would love to quit my day job and become an audiobook narrator. Would love
that
it.
would be really cool.
And you?
I'd like to do it. I think I've when I do, I enjoy doing the live readings when I do those.
You want to do a Stephen King and narrate your own books?
That would be kind of fun,
Yeah.
The thing about reading your own stuff is that like nobody like gets the sort of personal intonations better than you, because like how like you wanted your stuff emphasized. And now that might not be true of every writer, because I've listened to some readings at cons and are like, okay, you need a pro, right? But like I think I do okay, and so it might be fun to do, maybe once. But that'd be cool, man. I might. I hope that goes out, well for you. That'd be awesome.
Hey, have you read Olympos? That's the series after Ilium.
The sequel, yeah. I honestly, I think it's even better personally. I really love those two books. So I think Olympus is the one that people are a little more split on in kind of the same way. But whereas I will cop that Fall is not as good as Hyperion proper, I think Olympus is stronger. It's a little zany at the end, like I said, but I like that. So, and then we've got some people here for your narration there, man. You think maybe we'll do like a question or two more, and then see if people drop one in and wrap on up, because I know we're pushing 2.5. We're at 2.5 hours now.
Yeah, but we said we could probably do this for like all day, but adulting always.
But yeah, and like you've got a family somewhere who like probably misses you.
They'll still be there. Can't get rid of them if I tried, right?
Yeah,
I know there was other stuff I wanted to ask, but I can't think of what it is.
Yeah, I did have one that I had to know. Did you listen to the new Iron Maiden album?
I did. I actually liked it, not as much as Book of Souls. My big problem with Maiden in the second wave of the Dickerson run is I feel like I wish they'd shorten the songs by about 2 minutes and quit repeating the refrains so many times. It's like they're good refrains. I just really feel like they don't need to be 7.5 minutes. This would make a really. I mean, go back to like Brave New World, guys. It's like 5 minutes would be a fucking awesome version of the song.
And there was one song, I think it was Days of Future Past, was 4 minutes, and that one was great. And I like Writing on the Wall fine, but like I found myself tuning out most of the other ones when I was listening to them, and I was curious to hear what
I liked them when I listened to them, but there was nothing that I was singing in my head for days after, like I did with like the newest Judas Priest album or something.
Yeah. Oh man, Firepower is so good.
Yeah. Look, Halford's voice might not be what it was, but their tunes are still just as catchy as they always were. Yeah. Didn't you see them live recently?
I did, like a week ago, 2 weeks ago.
How? 2 weeks ago. I'm so jealous. So what does Rob do now on those really high notes? Is he just like not even try, or is he do like 4 octaves lower?
They're maybe a little lower than they used to be, but he's still got the duration, which is it's impressive. I think he might have
Painkiller right now. I just can't picture it.
He did it. Wow. He did it. He got through it. It was about the loudest show I have ever been to.
Who were they with?
Sabaton.
Okay.
They were great too. I like them too. It's usually like the opening band, I don't care, but this time I was like, oh, finally, 2 for 1. And they were awesome. They killed it.
I think the
But
only album by Priest I would say I actively just did not like was Nostradamus, which was their experimental album. I got that. But even that, I was like, that's still better than a lot of
yeah,
most bands' albums. But yeah, I mean,
it's like their most power metal album, which so I don't hate it. I'm not a big fan of Heading Out to the Highway. Is that what it's called, or is it called Desert Plains? The one Desert Plains is all.
You're not talking about Ripper Owens albums, are you?
No. That's Demolition and oh crap!
Those
What's
are
the
fine
first
albums.
one?
That didn't sound like Judas Priest to me, you know.
Yeah, I like Ripper Fine. He's great on Iced Earth. And I like the KK's Priest stuff that's starting to come out. Have you listened to that? So KK Downing finally went and got his own band together.
Really?
And it's mostly ex-Priest people. So Ripper's singing, and I think Les Banks was on drums or was gonna be on drums, and then he got sick. So I don't know if he's like on the album, not the tour, or whatever. But it's mostly ex-Priest people, and it's great. They've got like 3 songs out now. Just go check them out. They're awesome.
Well, I even like the Halford solo albums and stuff. So not two, but you know, just the Rob Halford solo albums are really good too. So
yeah, they're
one of my favorite ever.
Yeah, Resurrection's amazing. That's a great record. But no, they were great live. I do think they cut the encore short. I think because maybe he was wearing out. But I heard when they were at Bloodstock, they brought Glenn Tipton out, and he's got Parkinson's. He still played, I think, a song or two. And
I hate seeing this all my rock heroes just being like ancient. Like I saw this video the other day of Dave Mustaine. I didn't even recognize him because he had a beard. I was like, dude, I thought that was fucking Willie Nelson when he came on.
It's a little weird, but like the cool thing, right? Like I'm not a huge David Bowie fan, but one of the things I liked about Black Star was that it was definitely like an old man's album, right? And that's one of the cool things about like Leonard Cohen's later stuff, right? Like it's about him being old and thinking about death, and that's a very different kind of music, right? And that metal in particular, but rock and roll generally, is allowed to talk about those things now, is kind of an interesting place for the genre to be in, because it was very much like a young man's genre, right? And for that to sort of change as a consequence of rock's, I guess, sort of semi-ghettoization in the music world is sort of interesting.
Yeah, I find it amazing how some of these guys can go so long. Like I looked at obviously I saw Maiden right before the world ended, and it was awesome. I think
I did too. That was
like the one guy
show.
who just of those who's not lost his voice. You know, Hetfield's lost his voice. Halford's lost his voice. Dio still had it, but sadly he's never with us, or he's not with us any longer.
Yeah, Blackie Lawless still has it too. If you're
who's
that? Wasp.
A Wasp. Wow, Wasp. Holy shit,
yeah.
man. Yeah, you're really bringing it back here.
Oh, yeah. No, I like a lot of their newer stuff. I thought Golgotha was really good.
I haven't thought about them since the 80s,
but
honestly.
He still got it. But yeah, you're right. A lot of them just fading.
However, I did see Metallica on, I think it was Kimmel or something recently, and they were playing. So I was like, damn, they're still so good live. And they're like in their 60s now. So I'm like, you guys are going to have the most awful arthritis when you finally do retire.
I believe it, man. The one that I'm excited about is they're kind of more obscure, but you ever listen to Sabotage? They are the band,
name, but I haven't heard them.
They're the band that became Trans-Siberian Orchestra.
No kidding. Okay.
Yeah, their metal stuff, they're like pure metal stuff's amazing. I'm a huge, like maybe I might like them as much as Priest and maybe more. But like they just never really caught on. But they're talking about doing another album finally, and the singer John Oliva was talking about how like he hasn't sung this well in like 20 years because he stopped really singing, right? Because he was they were doing Trans-Siberian Orchestra because that's what really hit big, right? So they kind of scrapped the regular metal band, but he like as high as Halford.
No kidding.
Yeah,
right.
I'll check them out. But
have you ever listened to Volbeat?
I have not.
Volbeat, they're not for everybody, but it's basically it's a like rockabilly, I guess. It's kind of got like that country sound, but mixed with heavy metal. And it really sounds like you listen to like the Load era of Metallica, and you realize this is what it probably should have sounded like, and it probably would have went over better. I think that's kind of what they sound like. But I'll hit you with some stuff of them. I like them a lot. They're coming out with a new album here in a couple of months. Them and God, what's that band that sounds just like Led Zeppelin? I'm drawing a blank right now.
Greta Van Fleet.
Yeah, I like them a lot too. I mean, people are leaving like, oh, don't try to sound just like Led Zeppelin. I'm like, hey, I don't get Led Zeppelin records anymore.
Yeah,
Sound like Led Zeppelin. I'm here
more
for
of that,
it.
please. Yeah, exactly.
Hit
I'll
me
take
with
that
it.
over auto tune any day.
Yeah, right.
Man, have you heard Rival Sons?
Again, I know the name. No.
They're great too. They're more like just solid rock. They're not metal or anything, but they opened for Black Sabbath on their last tour. And they're amazing. They've got not quite like a rockabilly thing, but they've got like a little bit of like a, down south kind of vibe to them. And they're awesome. Just awesome.
I'm a fan of Southern rock. Bring it on. Sure.
Yeah.
All right. We're going to have to exchange iPods here, I think, pretty soon.
I'll send you music. But I guess maybe on that note, we'll wrap things up then,
a lot of fun as always.
Yeah, likewise. And Stella in here saying Sabotage is like Dio when he got lost in Middle Earth, and they did it before Dio. I actually opened for Dio once, which was that. If ever there was a show I want to see, it'd be that one. But
I was watching Tenacious D, The Pick of Destiny, the other day, and they had that scene with Dio in, and I was like, God, he was still so fucking rocking hard at that time too. Jeez.
Yeah, I'm not a big fan of that movie, but it really helped give Dio a bit of a second win there the last couple of years.
Oh, you don't like Tenacious D?
That movie is dumb. Like
so is Tenacious D, but I love him.
I was always, as you might imagine, a pretty serious kid, so it was hard for me to connect with that movie. I like it a lot more now, but like when I was a kid, I was like, oh my God, I just can't.
I just watched School of Rock the other day, so it had me watching Tenacious D and listening to Tenacious D again because Jack Black.
I do love Jack Black though. I can't believe he got a Grammy for his cover of Last in Line and Dio never got one.
Stuff like that. Yeah, that's stuff like that'll drive you crazy.
Yeah. But anyway, I am re-railing us here. So let's this is awesome. I thank you to everybody who was here. We had like 40 people the whole time, which is just awesome. So,
awesome.
Yeah, awesome. Well, thanks everybody. You all enjoy the rest of your weekend, and we will see you all again real soon. Mike, thank you. Thank you for being here.
My pleasure, man. Thanks for having me.
All right, now hit the off button.